everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and look, once again, it's Connor Nielsen in the flesh. It's true. See, look, I can, move his hat around. Hi, Connor.
Hello. How you doing, Cap?
How you doing, man? I just wanted to prove once again that you weren't a hologram. Or a cardboard cutout.
I mean, that would be cool if I had a cardboard cutout. That's when you know you've made it, is if you have a cardboard cutout.
Somebody prints you off and puts you on cardboard.
Yeah.
And yours would be tall.
I guess it would be tall. Although, are those always true to life?
Usually.
Oh, cool.
The ones I have are. You'd be about as tall as my Michael Dorn, is my Worf.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
But anyway, I digress. What are we doing today, sir?
Well, today we're doing a list video on our favorite films by genre. This was a sort of video idea I had seen many years ago from a channel that's now been debunked or
debunked. They weren't real. They, in fact, were a hologram.
Defunct. And I was still a little surprised I never saw this kind of list more.
That's true. I think I am a debunked channel. I'm not defunct, but people have debunked my channel. Sorry.
So this will be kind of fun just to go through different genres and talk about what our favorite picks are. It's obviously this channel is science fiction and superhero, which obviously, I mean, you've talked at length about, and you know, you can maybe go into those some of those old favorites, maybe reach into some of the ones you haven't necessarily talked about. But I don't know. I just thought it would be a fun way of gauging our tastes and interests. And if any of the commenters want to play along, you can tell us your interests as well.
I didn't take this insanely seriously. I did, like some of my picks are not super definitive, and I have a lot of runners up because there were certain categories where it was hard to pick one. So I will give like an official favorite for each of them for the sake of this list, but take that all with a grain of salt, and like I said, I don't want to take this too seriously. I did a list video a few years ago that was off the cuff, that was my top 20 movies just in general of all time, and they swept a lot of different categories, so I avoided those for this list because there are at least 3 or 4 categories that I'm sure folks coming into this that know me really well will be like, well, I know what Cap's going to say about that. That's not going to be interesting. So I try to do alternatives for those. So I will probably mention in certain cases, like, you all know what the actual answer is. But for the sake of this, I picked this other thing instead. And I won't talk for any amount of time about the ones that I've talked about before. I did want to do that because that was my only reservation about this as an idea, because I've kind of done this already, but not by genre. And the genre thing is cool because there will be a lot of things that I would never have thought to bring up, you know, that wouldn't have been able to penetrate that 20.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when I had initially sent you like a list of genres to play with, you had suggested, do you want to throw in a drama? So I think we'll start that way because it's sort of the most broad of all of them.
And then weirdly, I think the second broadest is epic, because I still can't decide what exactly that means.
Yes. Do I just want to go down, explain what the genres are first, or do we want to...
No, let's just go one at a time.
Okay.
Let's not even tell people what genres we're doing.
All right.
I think that'll be fun. That might give more incentive for people to listen to the entire video.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Or maybe not. Maybe they'll be like, you know what, it's not even worth it. These guys have been talking for so long, I don't even care what the categories are.
And I did want to... I don't know, something like courtroom drama might be a little too specific.
Yeah.
Crime is not a category here, because is that film noir? Is that drama? Is that action?
I think that might have been... I think we might have needed that one if we weren't doing drama, but I wanted to throw that in there because there were just too many really great movies that didn't fit in any of these. You know what I mean? Because literary is a genre, and so when you're looking at like genre movies, you end up like leaving out a whole bunch of stuff that would be nice to be able to talk about. Like I think probably the best movies on this list for me are the dramas I wrote down. And so, like, I would hate to not have had a place to put those.
I hear you.
We should also mention that Connor and I, about a year and a half ago, did a top 10 movies of the decade. So we've done this kind of list thing before, and we did that in person. So I don't know if this will become a tradition for us, but that's kind of why we're doing this. Is that we had done that before. That was fun. We thought it would be cool to do a thing like that again.
Yeah. So do you want to take the lead, or?
Oh, if you don't mind,
yeah.
Let me ask you this question real quick. Is at the risk of giving too much away, is anything on your list anything that was in that video? the top 10 of the previous decade?
I don't believe so.
I think at least one of mine is.
I think one of mine is actually as well.
Okay, cool. Or at least a runner-up. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're going to begin with drama, and I cannot help myself but to put a face in the crowd. I just absolutely have to.
Yeah, you finally showed this to me the first night I was here. Great movie.
Is freaking excellent. We're gonna be doing a commentary on that. I don't know if this video will come out before the commentary does, but like I'm sure 5 people will watch that. But DJ and I both discovered this movie at the same time. It is a 1957 film starring Andy Griffith. And it's just got a lot of really fascinating social commentary way ahead of its time about the future of television and how that can be used to manipulate people, and how much of just the idea of influencers and the power that influencers have. It's more relevant to today than it was to its time, and I think it was not especially appreciated and understood in its time. It didn't do real well at the box office, and as a result, Andy Griffith ended up with a TV career instead of a movie career. And it is, of the things I've seen from Andy Griffith, his best performance, and it's his first performance, and he wasn't an actor before that. He was just a comedian before that, and it's a brilliant script, and it's got a really great supporting performance from Walter Matthau, who's an actor that I've always liked a lot, and it hit me in a lot of places, and I'm going to be talking about it soon at length.
It's a great movie, and it actually does sort of tie in a little bit to my drama. I never went to film school, but I got the film school answer. I'm going to say Citizen Kane. Both of these movies are about men who had they didn't have like a privileged beginning.
Yeah.
And then through circumstances kind of outside of themselves, they end up becoming successful, and then they get more and more power, but the more power they get, the more alienated they feel from the rest of the world.
And the big difference between them is that Kane is a decent person with his heart in the right place to some degree early on, whereas Lonesome Rhodes is absolutely not that. That's a story about a protagonist who does not change, refuses to change, and I think you could argue actually with that movie whether or not he or the woman who finds him and who discovers him and gets him famous initially on the radio, Marcia, whether it's her story. I think you could make it. I don't know if it's dual protagonist. I think you could make a case that by the end of the day he is her antagonist, but you don't know it until about midway through the movie. I think you could make that case.
Yes, good. So one thing I really like about, but I think the two things that Lonesome Rhodes and Charles Foster Kane really have in common is they just want to be loved by everybody.
Yes.
That's a need they have, and the more success they find, the less love they seem to get. Authentic love.
Yeah, and in their pursuit of that obsession, they stop caring about people as people. Mm-hmm. So you have this interesting dichotomy of I need people to like me, but the more I become obsessed with that, the more I see people as people.
Yeah. And they both start with entertainment and move into politics.
Well, that's true.
And so one thing I really like about Citizen Kane is that...
Well, Citizen Kane starts as a journalist. I don't know if I would call that entertainment.
He almost tackles it like it is entertainment.
Well, that's true.
That's sort of why this movie's version of The Inquirer becomes as successful as it does, is because he's saying, okay, go out there and find a story. Pay somebody to do this and then make a story about it. And so it's yellow journalism, but he's like a kid in a candy store just kind of coming up with these wacky ideas.
Let me say, I've always loved Citizen Kane. I had to watch that for a film school all the way back film class all the way back in high school. And, pardon me, I didn't go to film school. For a film class back in high school. And, of course, that was heralded and has been heralded as the greatest movie of all time. It continues to dominate the AFI Top 100, but I don't think anything's gone above it at this point, right?
Not right now.
Still?
I think if they ever redo a list, maybe Vertigo will top it, but that's...
Is that sitting at 2 still?
No, that's right at 9, but the last time they did a Sight and Sound poll, it became the number 1.
Oh, interesting.
So,
okay. I haven't looked at that in a really long time, so I'm rusty. I don't remember what any of the entries are, but I remember some of the entries, but I don't know where they land. But anyway, I was just going to say, I was surprised because I made that comparison immediately watching Facing the Crowd, and I felt like it was blasphemous. I was like, I think I like this better than Citizen Kane, and I've watched it 3 times now in the last 2 weeks. I just can't stop looking at it. I showed it to my wife, I showed it to Connor, and I was like, I need you guys to tell me if I'm insane. This is my favorite film of all time now, and like, it's only been a couple weeks. That could change. I might just be on like this euphoric high right now. I don't know, but like, it really grabbed me, and I can't stop thinking about it, and it's going to be difficult to say everything I want to say in a 2-hour commentary.
Yes.
I think, and like, I'm not. I think it's impossible to say this is a better movie than Citizen Kane. I like it more. It speaks to me more. But I will say, and maybe this is blasphemous, I think they're both almost as well made as the other. Like, I don't know what I would change about either of those movies, and if I have to compare them.
The director of Facing the Crowd, it's either Elia Kazan or Elia Kazan. I mean, he's one of the all-time greats as well. So it's and I think what's cool about A Facing the Crowd is that it does. I think it is looking to Citizen Kane in a lot of ways, sure. And it is updating it for television, because between those two films, the big advent is television, and how that does, give a face to some, because it starts out with radio and then he becomes a television guy. So it's really great.
Could we say the founder does it for fast food?
Yeah, I guess so. Hold on, I gotta try to do that laugh more like Lonesome Roads. Okay.
Oh, yours is better. Yours is way better. Oh. No one knows what we're talking about, but they need to watch that movie.
You should check it out.
It's
great.
Just wonderful. Anyway, I've lost my notes. So, what are? Why don't you go ahead and give a runner-up or two for drama? Are we doing? Do you have runners-up for every category?
Not every category. Okay. But if I had to just like throw,
I did at least one for every one of them. We don't have to spend time talking about it. Either runners-up. We can just throw the names out so that this isn't a 3-hour video.
I'd say, I don't know. I really like Boyhood. That's my favorite movie of the last decade. So,
and I've still never seen that. I guess I should.
I know it's kind of memed at this point because it took 12 years to make, but it still speaks to me greatly, and I love it.
Okay, I just need a minute here because for some reason I've lost my notes. Did you have anything else?
Oh yeah,
in that category.
I guess other dramas would I would say I really enjoy just like 12 Angry Men.
Oh yeah,
that's a perfect movie.
Well, we both said like if we did courtroom drama, we would just like throw our hands in the air and go, 12 Angry Men.
It's 12 Angry Men,
and move on.
I mean, Anatomy of a Murder, I hear is one of the best. I haven't seen it yet, but I have a hard time imagining anything is better than 12 Angry Men. So.
Okay, you mind if I just toss out a few the things that could have just as easily been at the top? Well, not just as easily, not after the way I'm feeling about Facing the Crowd. It's a Wonderful Life. I had like a spiritual experience with a couple years ago. The first time I finally saw it. Whiplash I put in there. I can't stop going back to that movie. Stranger Than Fiction is a classic for me. And I also put Shawshank Redemption.
I have seen all of those except for Stranger Than Fiction.
Ooh, you should see that.
It's
one of the only movies I like him in.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Will Ferrell is wonderful in that film.
All of those could have been runners-up for me as well.
They're all great movies, right?
They're magnificent.
What category do you want to go to next?
The next category will be action and adventure.
Am I starting?
You want to go? You want to take the lead on this one?
Yeah. Am I going to keep starting every time, or you want to go back and forth?
I guess we can go back and forth.
Okay. What is your favorite action adventure film? And we should. Sorry. Before we do that, can I mention because you made a big deal out of this to me when we first started this. Importantly, we wanted to like just come up with something that like checked the box okay. So some of these could of course cross into different categories. So your action adventure could easily also fall under science fiction or some other people or some other thing.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because my favorite action adventure movie is the original Star Wars.
Oh, sure. Okay.
I think that, as a science fiction movie, there's been like debate as to whether it's actually science. Is it science? It's science fantasy as a George Lucas.
It is science
fantasy.
It is
science fantasy.
I don't think there should be a debate. I think it's clear what that is. It's a fantasy story that takes place in space.
Yes. It's also Western and all other kinds of samurai
technology.
stuff.
The technology doesn't have to be explained, but more importantly, it's not speculative.
Yes.
Like, science fiction is speculative. There's no what-if statement in Star Wars. Star Wars is a long time ago.
Yes.
By definition, not a what-if statement.
Yeah. But when you go into a video store or something, it's under science fiction and all that mumbo jumbo. You know, it's
for the sake of simplicity.
Yeah.
The thing is, all video stores had to do was do what bookstores do and put science and fantasy together in the same department, and then it wouldn't matter.
There you go.
You could on the side of Star Wars say science fiction / fantasy, and for whoever is picking it up, it could be whichever one of those they want it to be, and we would not have this debate.
And this isn't necessarily about that, but what you were talking about earlier, where something can fall into two. Genre is a pretty nebulous thing. You know, convention, it's defined by like aesthetics and conventions and structure, and a lot of times people like blending them together.
Because as human beings, we're always looking for patterns.
Yes. But the original Star Wars, I think, as a piece of entertainment, I can't think of something that better fits the bill for me. I know
Sure.
Empire Strikes Back is probably a better story. It's more complicated, it's more ambitious, but the original Star Wars, there's that pure simplicity that so many films and so many franchise non-starters really strive for, and they keep dropping the ball on. I think that what I see a lot of people who say, oh, you know, if you were able to make the original Star Wars knowing what it would have been, you could have done this and you could have done that and you could have done all these other little things. The lightsaber fight could have been cooler. I think, honestly, if you did all that, it wouldn't have been Star Wars. I really enjoy how it transforms from one kind of movie to the next, where the middle chunk is just a rescue a princess from the castle movie.
Sure.
And then the ending is in aerial combat, like World War II dogfight. And all of those things are so seamlessly blended together, and I think that it displays imagination, and it's the perfect example of a collaborative effort from, producers, writers who were helping George Lucas. His ex-wife, who was primarily the editor on that, did a lot for that. And so I think that I can never find a more entertaining stretch of movie, no matter how hard I look, than when Han, Luke, Obi-Wan, Chewbacca, and the droids get onto the Death Star, are trying to find and rescue Princess Leia. It is just, I cannot get up and leave. And then whenever I catch this movie, if my brother's watching it in the other room, I end up sitting with him and watching it till the end. I just love it completely.
Yeah, putting the emphasis with that, since we're dealing with action adventure, on the adventure part is smart. I didn't think of that. I didn't really do that. Now I'm kind of wishing that I had, because I would have a hard time putting the original Star Wars over Empire ever. But you're right. Like, as an adventure, there's a childlike whimsy to that we needed right then, and that helped pull. And I don't mean that you have to pick things just because of what it does historically, but I mean, like, that helped pull a lot of entertainment out of a rut we were in right then. Where, like, the 70s is a really cool time for film and a really interesting time for film because of how experimental it is, but we kind of get back to brass tacks into the 80s after Star Wars, and very much because of Star Wars, in telling fun adventures for kids and families again. You don't have great family films after 79 or 77 without Star Wars.
Yeah. It's 70s is a great decade for movies, but it's also a very heavy decade. You get like The French Connection and The Godfather and Apocalypse Now and Alien. The Conversation, like all of these great movies, but they're heavy, and it was just, hey, let's just have some fun. And you can have fun without sacrificing good filmmaking. And so that's what I kind of get out of that.
So, with that said, I picked something that actually is kind of heavy and not for kids, and that was Terminator 2.
Hey!
Because I just can't help myself. And that still certainly falls in that category. I, being the science fiction buff I am, had a hard time not putting a couple, 3 science fiction films in different categories. So I easily could have put Terminator 2 in the science fiction category instead for the great, what makes a man's story within that. I also could have done it with RoboCop. But, so I guess I'm telling you, I didn't actually pick either of those for the science fiction category. And I also could have picked RoboCop for action adventure really easily. But Terminator 2 is just way too thrilling to not pick it. Like, it works so well in all of those different categories. it's not a horror film like the first movie is, but it's also really suspenseful like that is, and really good suspense, of course, is often a major element of good action adventure, and so I'm picking that for the chase scenes because that's a hard thing to get right, and that movie has some of the most spectacular chase scenes ever filmed, and then particularly at the beginning, and then the T-1000 is one of the great villains, and visually, and yeah, I don't know, I just couldn't help myself. Like, if I'm, because the way I put this together is I was thinking, like, if I was gonna walk into a video store, we don't have those anymore, but if I was to, or at least not very many, and I don't go to them anymore. If I was going to, like, walk into a video store and see the action adventure category and say your section, like, I'm in the mood for that, what would I be going after? That's probably the first movie I would think of.
And it's funny you said it's not for kids. It was very popular with kids, though.
It sure was, as was RoboCop. Both of those were weirdly marketed toward kids, even though they absolutely shouldn't have been.
But no, that's a great pick. I didn't watch Terminator 2 until embarrassingly recently.
Oh, I know.
It was an ongoing joke.
In the last year.
I think it was, because 2020 is the lost year, it was the very end of 2019. And it was because Dark Fate was coming out. So if anything, Dark Fate got me to at least finally watch T2.
I'm glad it was good for something.
It wasn't good on its own.
No, it wasn't.
It was just,
but you like that movie, okay?
It was really good.
It's really good.
It's so good, and as an action movie, it is thrilling, as you were saying. But as an adventure movie, we do go to different places, and because that
I think the kid helps.
He does, and we are constantly traveling, and so we're never staying in one place for too long because it is a chase movie as well.
But yeah, you're right. Like, there is a real quest that's going on. And there's and you've got that self-discovery.
Yes,
certainly. And Schwarzenegger gives an actual performance, like, it's a real performance.
So good.
Yeah,
that is a director knowing exactly how to use his actor.
Yeah,
and I mean, it's probably no one.
The man doesn't have range, but he's wonderful in that.
Yeah. Has anybody besides James Cameron gotten that level of a performance out of Schwarzenegger?
Because, I mean, that is the closest you're ever going to get to a Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, I guess so.
Caliber performance out of him, because that's a real actor.
Yeah, and the people forget that. Sylvester Stallone is a really good actor.
Well, he's a jack of all trades, man. Like he's a great actor, but I think he's a better writer even.
He is.
Stallone's a
remarkably talented
one of the great Hollywood writers, and he also doesn't get enough credit for that.
And as a director, Stallone he's not bad.
No, not
I
at
think
all.
He's better at acting and writing, but he's still a solid director.
Yep.
I think it's pretty funny that you had brought up T2 because now we're going to be. Oh wait, hold on. Before we move into comedy, there is a connection to my comedy.
Well, do we want to do any runners up? Because, like I said, I have some for every category.
Yeah. I will say Mad Max.
I got overzealous.
No, I know. I have a few runners up myself. I have Mad Max Fury Road as a runner up for action. I think it might be the most impressive, and if I had to do, like, objectively, it might be the most impressive action film made, especially considering how much of that was in camera, on location, and the way they made that is, I think, jaw-dropping and brilliant. But then the other thing is, I would just say, broadly speaking, the John Wick franchise.
That's on my list.
Yeah,
that almost topped it.
And I couldn't blame you. Like, every movie at least.
It's hard to pick one over the other because, like, it's kind of almost of a piece now. Mm-hmm. Each movie is certainly standing on its own. Don't get me wrong, but, like, I don't know if I would have picked it before 2 came out though. Like, now that we've drawn the curtain back and, like, it's so heightened in comic book, I love it. So I just love that world. And it's really interesting that you mentioned both of those things, because if I was gonna make up, like, categories for an award show and I did, like, world building, those are both movies that would top the world building category.
Every John Wick movie has at least 2 action scenes that I cannot stop thinking about for months. The knives in the third one, the Carfu in the second one, like, it's all really, really great. And I'm glad it did, like the curtain pulled back and it is as comic booky, because when I went to see that first movie, I thought there's a potential for a really comic booky universe here, and they played exactly into what I wanted from it.
Well, what's weird is if you go look at the special features and the commentary with the first movie, they're talking about it like that's what it always, like, it clearly, obviously, is that from the first movie, and it's not. You got inklings of it. But like, I love it for that, because we got to be so surprised by that sequel. And I felt like I was eating crow after that first movie, because when we reviewed it, I said I think me and Brandon reviewed that, or me and somebody, I can't remember. And I said, this is a really good movie. I'm questioning not killing him off at the end of that first movie. I thought for the sake of that story, it was a misstep, but it was just... It's Keanu Reeves. We want to make a franchise out of this. Yeah. It's the Matrix guys wanting to do this other franchise, and I'm like, is it? But we kind of sacrificed the right ending, and then we've got the sequels, and I don't agree with myself on that anymore. And I did a rewind on that first movie, and going back and looking at it and actually writing about it, I can't remember what exactly I said, but I think I wrote myself out of that whole thing where I was like, no, it does work that he's alive at the end. But anyway.
What are some of your runners up?
I didn't mean to talk about that too long, but
if it's on both of our runners up, then
I love John Wick. Lethal Weapon.
I've not seen it.
Lethal Weapon is wonderful. That was the others. That and John Wick. Those were the other two I wanted to mention. I also could have put Lethal Weapon under comedy, to be fair, because it's a wonderful comedy. But what? So we want to start with comedy now, and I guess it's my turn to start.
Yeah, go for it.
Groundhog Day.
Can you believe
You've never seen it? Oh man, I wish we'd done that while you were here. I wish we had time to do that. Okay. Yeah, Groundhog Day is great. It's the funniest thing Bill Murray did. It's also wonderfully heartwarming. It's a really good character arc for him, for his character. So like, it's not just funny, like it's a good story, and it's one of those movies that is brilliant because of its sense of continuity. Like, it never forgets about all of the stuff that it's all the little details of this town that it's constantly having to repeat over and over again. And it's one of the few movies I've seen that really gets butterfly effect. That's one of the things, because I'm kind of obsessed with the notion of butterfly effect, and it drives me crazy when we like kind of cheat and cut corners with time travel stuff, where like if something major doesn't happen, history works out more or less the same, and that's just not how it works. Yeah. And that movie gets that, and that's a thing I like. But I think the most impressive thing about Groundhog Day, and I know that some people were irritated by the causality loop thing with that movie, but for me, I watched that movie, and like, I've seen it a bunch of times, and I think it's a big I think it's a big achievement that you can make a movie that's about time repeating over and over again, and I actually want to rewatch it as many times as I have. Like, it should be the most annoying thing, and you don't want to go back to it, and it's not. Like I love it.
And I know recently, I mean, not just recently, but since that's come out, there are time loop movies that have almost become a genre unto themselves.
Where we do it in every... It's a lot like found footage movies, where we do one of those in every category now. So there's a horror one, and I love Happy Death Day. There's a horror one, there's Edge of Tomorrow, there's a science fiction one. Better track record for those, though, than for found footage movies. Most of them are good. Or at least the ones that I just mentioned. I like all of those
And
films.
I know Hulu had that movie called Palm Springs last year.
I didn't know about that. Is that a causality loop thing?
Yeah, and people, except it's two people caught a causality loop together.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I haven't seen it, but I know a lot of people did find it very charming, and especially with the pandemic, I know a lot of people were reassessing Groundhog Day stories where,
because it feels like we're living in that.
Yes, and it's already a metaphor for life, getting stuck in, the day-to-day of work and everything.
Mundanity.
But having that world, like, constricted even more. I saw several, like, video essays and think pieces about why Palm Springs was as popular as it was.
I need to look that up. I didn't hear about that.
Yeah. It has Andy Samberg. I don't know if you know who that is.
Not right off.
He's an SNL guy.
Okay.
But
yeah, the big trope that you always do with the causality, and of course, I'm also really familiar with causality loops because of Star Trek and other science fiction shows where, like, Star Trek's done that 18 times.
Yeah.
And the big
I've
one is
seen one of them.
the big one is Cause and Effect from TNG. Is that the one you saw where,
saw that one.
where the Enterprise explodes 6
Yeah.
times and the day is saved by the number 3? But
I watched it because you told me to watch it.
oh yeah.
We were on a phone call, and then you just said, "Oh, there's this TNG episode you would probably like. It's called Cause and Effect." And the next day, I just watched Cause and Effect.
Did you like it?
I did. It's good.
It's
I
good.
liked it,
yeah. But the big trope that you always do with that is only one person knows they're in the causality loop. That does not do that. That is just everyone starts to feel deja vu. But the trope we usually do with that is there's only one person that's in the causality loop, and then they have to convince somebody else that they are, and then there's like a ticking clock where they have to try to solve it before that person no longer remembers, and then they have to be convinced again. So to see one with more than one person that's in it would be interesting, because I've never seen that done.
Yeah.
I don't think,
Yeah. So my favorite comedy does sort of tie into what you were talking about with T2, because there's a gag about it. It's Wayne's World. Wayne's World.
Sure. I didn't even think of that.
So what I find the most interesting thing about Wayne's World is that it was actually directed by a documentarian. And so it almost feels like a preservation
I didn't know that.
of a subculture at a very specific point in time, as it is a kind of goofy romp. And so
which makes it oddly important.
I think so.
Because you show that to your kids and you'd be like, okay, obviously this is a farce, but there's a lot of things in it that are really authentic to this period, and you can get a sense of what the vibe of that time was.
And so when they do go into a club, the way they shoot that club and the way they'll shoot a performance, Penelope Spheres, she did like a series of documentaries called The Fall of Western Civilization, which was all about rock and roll and how rock changed into metal and how metal kind of changed into...
I didn't know
and
that.
So I never watched that. I think there's 3 of them. But then she became a comedy director with like Black Sheep and some other stuff. I think she directed the Coneheads movie. But she...
I have not gone back and reassessed that in a long time, and I'm a little bit leery too, but I loved it when I was a kid. I have Conehead action figures.
Do you?
I
Really?
do, yeah.
I watched Coneheads because a Red Hot Chili Peppers song I like, it was from that movie. And it only plays in the background of one scene.
You'll have to watch the 95 Power Rangers movie.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a Red Hot Chili Peppers cover of a song in that.
Oh, was that a Higher Ground? Mm-hmm. My brother and I learned how to play that for our middle school talent show.
How did you know?
I didn't know it was from...
But how did you know it was Higher Ground? Oh, just because I said cover?
Oh, well, no, because my dad loves Stevie Wonder. And so, like, I would listen...
I'm just saying, how did you know when I said Power Rangers that was the song that was in that movie? I was just surprised that you got it right the first time.
Oh,
is that the only thing they've covered?
I think it might be.
Right.
And I think I had heard somewhere that song was in Power Rangers.
That's during the skydive sequence at the beginning, which gives you the very important information that the Power Rangers are athletic.
They are jumping from a higher ground, if you will.
Precisely. It's low on the nose.
But so Wayne's World is just one of those things where when I'm watching a comedy, I do first and foremost want to laugh. And it plays a lot to it influenced a lot of my comic sensibilities and what I like. It's random and goofy in ways that I think sort of make sense, even though there's not really an inner logic to a lot of that movie.
Yeah.
I think that...
The ending breaks my brain and I just don't even want to think about it.
But even one of the endings, it does have a setup way at the beginning, and Ed O'Neill as like the donut guy who he hates his life, and there's like allusions to his past that I find funny. And the way it lampoons tropes in popular movies at the time. There's a big scene where he has like, it's called, Oscar moment, where he's like throwing water in his eyes to make it look like he's crying, and he has this big "I never learned to read" moment. And then I watched a movie that was from 4 years after it, where somebody does have a dramatic "I never learned to read" moment, and it made that scene even funnier to me. So I love Wayne's World. I think it's Mike Myers' best work.
And I see that as like the proto YouTube movie. Like, I think there's a couple of those.
That's a good, yeah. And I think that for a movie that is so of its time and making spoofs and observations about pop culture, so many of the references hold up.
Yeah.
There's like one part that's like basically an ad for Grey Poupon that I never get growing up, but it makes fun of T2. It makes fun of...
and like I was around through all that, so like I knew what all that was. I saw Wayne's World in the theater. It was one of the
did you?
Maybe not one of the first movies I saw, because I know I saw like Superman 4 when I was 3 years old, but yeah, at like 5 or 6 years old, I know I saw that in the theater.
Oh, that's cool. What are some of your runners-up for comedy?
Oh, well, I'm glad you asked. I couldn't help but write down Ghostbusters. It's obligatory, but you know what? I think that probably was in my 20, so I couldn't have put that front for the sake of this. The Mask, of course, and School of Rock.
I love School of Rock. I never met anybody who doesn't like that movie. It's
me neither.
I think it's funny that you have some Bill Murray stuff because my runner-up is also a Bill Murray thing. What about Bob?
And I like that movie too, but I haven't seen it in so long. It's been since I was a kid. I need to watch that again.
One thing I appreciate about that movie is that it is Bill Murray not being the cynical kind of misanthrope.
He's typecast that way, yeah.
And so that's the one who gets to be kind of a goofball. And him and Richard Dreyfuss, I think, have perfect timing with one another.
It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. Let's go to science fiction.
All right, my science fiction pick is Blade Runner.
Yeah, and I could have, if I bet $100, I would have won that. Yeah.
I have seen this movie so many times. At the beginning of this year, I spent an entire week where every day I watched a different cut of the movie. I love Blade Runner, and it's a movie that when I first watched it, it was like, oh, I have no idea what happened in that. I know I watched something pretty good, but I don't know what's going on in this movie. And so I kind of became obsessed with it a little bit in 2016, and I watched it kind of like 5 or 6 times over the course of the first half of that year.
I remember that.
I think it's really special to me. It's one of those things where I understand that a lot of people find it boring. It is deliberately paced.
Yep.
But I think that the more I watch it, the more I think it makes all of the right choices. I think Deckard is a really brilliant central character, and that movie does seem to have a read on society that has become more and more true. And I think it was true in the 80s when they made it, and it's become more and more true of the closer in physical proximity people come together, the farther apart emotionally people are becoming. And Deckard, and I think that Harrison Ford's performance of Deckard, he is so unlikable, but in real ways. He doesn't talk right. Like his delivery almost sounds like he's sabotaging the movie because his performance is like anti-charisma, but I think it's the right choice. And Rutger Hauer is a machine, or he's not even really a machine. He is an artificially created person.
Yeah.
And I think that movie's. But he's more traditionally charismatic and human than actual humans are. And
I've always thought, because that movie, of course, that script it goes without saying, a big departure from the source material. And if you go back and read Do Androids Dream, it kind of watches, after you said that with Harrison Ford's performance, it almost watches like Harrison Ford read the book.
Oh yeah,
and was like playing the character more as written in the book, and like the anti-charisma thing.
I really like a lot of what the movie. I mean, it looks immaculate. I've been watching through all of Ridley Scott's movies. He's a very great filmmaker. I don't think he's made anything that honestly comes close to Blade Runner. I like a lot of his work. It's the only movie he's made that I absolutely love.
Really,
it's great. And you have to watch the final cut. You will never be satisfied with Blade Runner on a first viewing, no matter what cut you watch. So maybe watch whatever version you'd like, but eventually you will agree, as everybody does, the final cut is the version to watch.
Blade Runner is fascinating. It's important. It's a good film. It's not fun to me to watch. It's not a thing that I like put in and want to look at. I don't think I've ever sat through the final cut, or if I have, it's been a long time. And I'm really rusty on Blade Runner because it's just not a thing that I go back to. So I've seen it maybe 2 or 3 times. And it was probably a different version every time I saw it. And I do, having not spent a ton of time with it like you have, I am in that camp of liking 2049 more, but I haven't written about either of those movies, so I'm not going to say it's necessarily a better story than that movie. I think it is, but I don't know if I'm right about that.
Well, 2049...
But I would much rather sit down and watch 2049.
Even though it's 45 minutes longer.
You know what? And it is the same kind of deliberately paced, but I don't find it as boring.
Well, and I think the reason is because I think people, maybe because it's using the tropes of film noir and mystery, it's not a mystery. It's a procedural. And
you're talking about Blade Runner?
The original Blade Runner is a procedural, and in 2049
is an actual mystery.
It is a mystery.
Yeah. And so you're saying it maybe keeps you more engaged in that because you're trying to guess at what the
Yes,
and it does stick the landing on that.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
And it's one of those things because people say, oh, he's a detective, but there's no mystery. He's a detective, but it's not a mystery. You're watching a serial killer, go through his job of being a serial killer through half of that movie.
Yeah.
And then the more he kills artificial people, it dehumanizes him.
Yes.
And the movie's thesis, while you're trying to figure out are replicants people, the movie already has an answer, and that's yes.
Yeah.
So you're almost catching up with the movie, and Deckard is as well. So I think it's lovely. I've been talking about it a little too. I could talk about it for hours.
Have you played Detroit Become Human?
I have not,
because it's essentially Blade Runner the video game, and yeah, you got to do it. It's great. It also has an answer for whether or not the robots are people. So this category is tough for me for obvious reasons. It's really hard not to just say Wrath of Khan again and move on, but I'm not going to do that. I went for the original Planet of the Apes because I felt like it was just the answer. I waited way too long before I saw that, and for really dumb, superficial reasons. I just don't care about apes and monkeys as characters in things. Like, every time Gorilla Grodd shows up in something, my eyes roll in the back of my head. Like, I don't care, right? And you'd be like, but Cab, you're a Powerpuff Girls fan. What about Mojo Jojo? But the way he talks fixes all of it. You know? Yeah. Gorilla Grodd was, like, constantly repeating himself, but with different word choice, I'd be totally on board, right?
Yes.
So anyway, Planet of the Apes really shocked me when I saw it the first time. And the reason I watched it finally was because Rise of the Planet of the Apes was about to come out, and I'm sorry, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was about to come out, which should have been called Rise. Those need flipped titles, but they don't have them. And it looked really good, and I liked Gary Oldman. I really wanted to see it, and so I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna go back and watch the original because I'm gonna feel weird if I don't do that. And I hadn't seen Rise yet, so I on the same day watched Planet of the Apes and Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which are really interesting to watch back to back, and I highly recommend doing that. Actually, watching the original movie and then the beginning of the remake series, which is wonderful. And War is not the best, but it's still okay. But
it is the best.
I think that movie is deeply flawed.
Okay.
But it should have been Skirmish of the Planet of the Apes. Like it acts like the whole war is done at the end of that movie. You had a battle and it's done, and I don't understand that. That was a mistake. That felt like the beginning of another trilogy that we'll never get the rest of. Yeah. And I don't know about that. I know apparently they're gonna finally make a fourth one, and I thought they were gonna reboot the whole thing again. And I'm really glad that we're apparently getting one more movie.
That's good.
So that's good, and I hope it's their actual Planet of the Apes because I need them to remake that movie in that continuity. That's what we were waiting for all the way through, and we keep kind of telegraphing things for their remake. I need them to do, like, they've earned it. They need to. I don't care who directs that. They need. I wish it was Matt Reeves, but they really need to. Anyway, so I could have put Dawn of the Planet of the Apes on, or Rise. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes on here, but I went for the original because I had a really unique experience with that movie the first time I saw it, which is I knew the twist ending, and it still hit me in the same way it would have if I didn't know the twist. like I knew about the New York thing. I know what happens when you get to the end. Oh, we were on the original Earth all along, but I didn't know the context and the thematic weight behind it, and what like the metaphor of the whole thing was, and the like classism issues of that movie, and the idea of how easy it is to just fall into routine and like religion and society and what you've been told all along the rules are and what morality is, and then at some point you might realize, oh, this is all arbitrary, and I guess we just treat these people as lower than us because we always have, and I've never questioned it, and in all of that, I didn't have any sense of what that ending meant. And when you get there and it's like, oh, we caused this whole thing, we made this happen. It's wonderful. I also just really like the feel. It's been a long time since I've watched that movie, so it's hard to articulate it right now. But it's I need to go back to. It's funny because I have a couple movies on here that I absolutely love, but I just have not taken the time to go back and look at multiple times. And Planet of the Apes, I think I've seen twice maybe, and I do need to spend more time with that movie. But I really like the kind of mood and flavor of really good 60s and 70s science fiction, and I think that's kind of the golden age as far as film goes, and of course even television to some degree for me because of Star Trek. And the beginning of that movie has a little bit of a kind of Star Trek flavor, but more so but more so it feels like an episode of the Twilight Zone. Like Planet of the Apes basically is a Twilight Zone.
And it's co-written by Rod Serling.
Yeah.
Right?
So I mean that's why. But I mean, but a lot of people I don't think realize that I mean it has that same kind of O. Henry ending. Like Planet of the Apes could have been a Twilight Zone.
That's cool. I've never seen it, but my brother has, and I had the same thing you did.
And I mean, you'll love it.
I'm sure I will.
There's no way around. You will love that movie.
I love Rod Serling.
Yeah, it's great.
So
yeah, I know that's your favorite TV show.
I guess some science fiction runners up. I would say the 1927 Fritz Lang movie Metropolis.
That's on my list too. Yeah.
That is one of those movies that inspired me because of just how nutty it is, and it's just willing to do everything. And I think it does tell a pretty solid story.
And it's so insanely groundbreaking in that movie. Like, there's I don't know. Would it be an exaggeration to say that there are probably like 7 or 8 different like technical techniques that Metropolis invents in the first place?
Most definitely. I would say Inception is another one because that was one where that blends genres of action and science fiction to where I don't know what it falls into, but because of the way in which it facilitates its emotional journey is with speculative technology. I would guess it's in science fiction.
Yeah, it is.
And I think it does work better as a sci-fi than an action movie. And then the third one I would say is the original 1954 Godzilla movie.
Yeah, I should have written that down. I didn't, but
it's great. But what are some of your runners up?
The only other thing I would add right now is Moon.
Oh yeah, I've not seen it, but I really want to.
I love that movie, and for a while, I decided that guy was my new favorite director, and I ultimately have not really cared for anything else he's made. So that's unfortunate because I really liked his second movie initially, and then I went back and reviewed it again with Eric, and it didn't hold up. Though it fell apart on us story wise, and I was very sad. But anyway, what is that movie called?
Source Code.
Source Code. Thank you. Yeah. It's pretty convoluted by the end.
I'm about to watch that in the next couple months. So.
Are you?
Yeah.
Watch Moon first.
And that's what I plan on doing.
You really need to watch Moon first.
I'm disappointed I have not seen Moon.
Tell me what you think of that.
I will. Absolutely.
I'm not gonna talk about that right now. I've done that, and we need to move on because we were not gonna talk about our runners up that much.
We need to moon on.
That doesn't sound very classy.
Oh, I'm sorry, everybody.
So we move on now to horror. And am I starting horror?
Yes.
Because you started science fiction, right?
Yes.
So my actual real answer to this, of course, is Misery. But I talked about that when I did my top 20. So I'm going to get away from the Stephen King thing, and I'm going to say 28 Days Later. And I don't care what anybody says. I love that movie. And I also could have said that for disaster film, by the way. I still find the zombies kind of actually scary in that movie, and that's the thing I really appreciate about it. Just it's a beautiful film, and I think it. What's that guy's name? The Scarecrow guy,
Cillian Murphy.
Cillian Murphy. He's really good in that, and that was I think his first role or one of his first roles. But it's like I never cared about zombie movies, and I'm not a big zombie movie guy. But I was really taken in by that movie, and I remember seeing that I don't remember why I went, but I saw that in the theater, and I remember having that thing where I saw it kind of late at night because I was working at a movie theater at the time, and I think it's kind of special to me, partly just because of the time of life I was in, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it was like senior year of high school, and I was going to a lot of free movies, and so I saw that before it opened, and, working at the theater, you'd have these screenings right before a movie would be put out, and I'm driving to my house that night at like 1 a.m. and I was a little creeped out. I'm kind of waiting for stuff to jump out at me, and like I had not had that experience with much. The Ring gave me that a little bit as well.
Okay.
But I don't have that movie on this list or runner up, but I like that okay too. But yeah, I don't know. 28 Days Later is kind of special to me, and I go back to it every so often.
Yeah, I that again, not watched
just
it.
Gorgeous landscape shots and stuff that you wonder how they even did, where it's like it really looks like, and Walking Dead has this now to some degree too, like it's sort of Walking Dead before Walking Dead, except with fast zombies. And some people didn't like it because zombies aren't supposed to be fast, but I like the fast zombie thing. It made it scarier. I like the idea of the zombie that like that you think is maybe slow, and then it notices you, and then it shoots off at you like holy crap, you know. And they're really feral, and they've got these like really creepy like red eyes, and it's great. But it really felt like they just went to London after an apocalypse. Like I don't know how they shot that movie. It's amazing.
I need to finally get around to seeing that. I like the cast. I like the filmmaker.
It holds up. Watch it as big as you can for those landscape shots, man.
Absolutely will.
It's like Skyfall, where we just keep stopping and looking at landscape shots.
And you go, that's the good stuff. So my pick for a horror. This was a tricky one for me because I'm not a huge horror guy.
I'm not either.
But the horror movies I like really stick with me.
Okay.
And I tend to like the horror stuff. I tend to like is what it sounds like 28 Days Later is. It is more spectacle horror, where you just kind of where the terror is palpable in the atmosphere for the characters, and they're kind of running amok and kind of don't know what to do. But none of those really fell on my runners up or my pick. So my pick, I don't necessarily like talking about this movie because it makes it sound like I've seen 20 movies, because it's my favorite horror movie. It's also my favorite prequel film. It's also my favorite leading performance.
Oh, I thought I knew what it was until you said prequel film.
It's my favorite leading performance. It has my favorite opening shot in a movie, and it has it's in my top 3 musical scores. And it is David Lynch's Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. It is one of the only times he's ever just like completely committed to horror. Because he's a person who likes to mix genre. Typically, there's a level of irony to a lot of the proceedings, so some people enjoy some of his spookier stuff as kind of gallows comedies. Like a lot of people, there's a sect of people who watch Eraserhead and think, oh, it's actually a comedy. I don't know how you watch that movie and think that, but they do. But this movie starts off with a half-hour prologue that is just a comedic like subplot with Kiefer Sutherland and Chris Isaac. And then it jumps into the week leading up to the beginning of the show. Now, you've seen the pilot.
It's been forever going.
It's been forever. But
I didn't like it.
The inciting incident of that is the prom queen, Laura Palmer, is dead. Mm-hmm. Who killed Laura Palmer? And this movie, it's the last week of her life. And some people don't like this movie. It's when it came out, it was one of the worst reviewed films ever. Very few people ever went to watch it, and not a whole lot of critics actually reviewed it. It has one mixed review, and the rest were negative reviews. And but throughout a lot of the show, you find out about the history of Laura Palmer, and then the movie is just seeing that. And it runs the risk of being a sort of redundant movie where I already know all this, why do I need to see it? But bringing Laura to life and watching it happen, it is terrifying for the first half. And then once the movie becomes normalized to you, you just become deeply, deeply sad as you're watching this woman's life fall apart in front of your eyes. And it would be so easy to make this movie where you're just punishing this character needlessly. But I think the way Lynch handles it with his co-writer and as he directs it, and the way Cheryl Lee's performance, the way she handles it, it's so mature and thoughtfully handled that you're watching it and there's not an ounce of exploitation to it. It all feels like necessary and tragic, and it makes you like, it made me want to examine my own life and the relationships I had with my friends and observing the social dynamics I was taking in. And so I think it's lovely. If you want to watch it, don't until you've seen all 30 episodes of the original series, because you won't know what's going on, and it acts as an epilogue to that show as well as a prequel. So that's my favorite horror movie. What are some of your runners up?
Well, when you said that it was going to make you look like you've only seen 20 movies, I thought you meant because you were going to pick like something really obvious.
Oh yeah.
You know, like why does that make you look like you've only seen 20 movies? I don't understand that statement.
Well, because I watched a show. I liked the show. I saw the movie. It's a little off the beaten path, so I think I'm being kind of like, ooh, you didn't expect this.
Oh, sure, but I can see that.
It's my favorite prequel, and it's my favorite horror movie, and it's my favorite lead performance, and it's my favorite supporting performance,
Sure,
and it's my favorite this.
But that would only happen if that's all we were talking about, because you're talking about a bazillion other movies in the middle of this list.
Well, I should say
when
I'm talking about something in isolation, like if I'm talking about this movie all by itself in a conversation outside of this video.
Well, sure, and I mean I feel that way whenever I talk about like Wrath of Khan.
Uh-huh.
Where it's like, well, yeah, okay, like, so your favorite science fiction film is a Star Trek thing. Of course, you're a big Star Trek buff, but like, what about other, films in the science fiction canon? But it's like, yeah, but it is one of the greats, though. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It is one of the great science fiction films, regardless of the fact that it's Star Trek.
Wrath of Khan is magnificent. As somebody who is not a Star Trek buff, it's a nigh perfect movie. It's so good. So suspenseful.
And it's one of those
exciting.
things that's ridiculous that it even came together the way it did, because it shouldn't have. Yeah, but anyway, runners up for horror, Flatliners, Can't Help Myself, Psycho.
Oh,
like of course.
Yeah. Psycho's magnificent, and you will show me Flatliners one day. I might hold off watching it just so you can show it to me someday.
Okay. Have you seen Misery?
I've not seen Misery.
I think you'd like that too.
My dad is like ashamed that I've not seen Misery.
That resonates with me so hard as a writer. What other runners up did you have?
Oh, my runners up were the Wes Craven film The People Under the Stairs.
I've never seen that.
Which is goofy. It is a horror comedy, and I know a lot of people, it wasn't sold as a comedy, so people say, oh, it's so bad it's good. No, it's trying to be funny. If you follow Wes Craven at all, there are some stuff where it's one thing I find comforting about that movie is the complete disregard for the human body it has, which sounds nihilistic, but it's strangely comforting when you watch that movie. Okay. Anyways, but then the other runner-up I had is the 1978 original Dawn of the Dead, which it doesn't really hold up to me as a horror film. I'm sure when it came out, it was a horror movie just laced with a bunch of gallows humor. It now reads to me as this kind of tragic film that's also a comedy.
Yeah.
And I think that it's one of the most American movies ever made. The way it makes its assessment about American society.
I need to finally actually watch that. Like I know things about it, but I've never actually sat down.
If you can get your hands on it, or I don't know, through means that might not entirely be appreciated by the people who distribute that film, then I would highly suggest it, because you can't get your hands on it in a way without spending hundreds of dollars. So
you just made me think of a couple other things. So if you don't mind, real quick, They Live.
Oh yeah.
And then In the Mouth of Madness, and then the original Night of the Living Dead or the remake, because I really like them both. Okay.
I almost went with
the remake has Tony Todd, and the guy from the original is really good. This is not fair to that actor, but I almost want the original movie with Tony Todd like inserted into it somehow.
And that movie's in the public domain, so maybe we could do that. We have green screen, we can do it.
I think the mistake that the remake makes is not being in black and white. I kind of wish it was in black and white again.
I almost put the original Night of the Living Dead, because as a 16-year-old who did not watch any horror movies before that, the ending was legitimately shocking to me.
Also Stephen King's The Fog.
Ooh, I've not watched that.
The last few things that I mentioned besides Night of the Living Dead are things that Eric made me watch, because Eric's a big horror guy, and that really opened my palette up. And those are movies I haven't thought about since we talked about them, but now that I'm sitting here talking about it, yeah, those are some of the best horror movies that I've seen, absolutely. Okay.
All right, so
we move on now to film noir, which is a genre that I don't know enough about. So I wrote down like the obvious thing.
Well,
because I can't help myself.
Here's the thing about film noir. I mentioned it earlier that
actually maybe is too niche. Like, why is that on this list?
Well, I guess I could maybe get into that a little.
Sorry, go ahead.
So we were talking about how nebulous genre is earlier.
Mm-hmm.
This might be the most nebulous, because I think it is the only film that can be exclusive, or is the only genre that can be exclusive to film. And because of this...
Because you have to have that visual component.
Yeah. And because of this, you think film.
You could have a hard-boiled novel,
yes,
which could then become a noir movie, but you can't have a noir novel.
Yeah,
you could sort of have a noir comic book.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the thing, because this thing, because film snobs have always been snobby and always tried to write the rule books ever since it's been made.
Yeah,
it is so. I think it's almost a headache if you were to say what's a film noir. People have all these qualifiers. It's become a bit of a meme in the Discord of does Zack Snyder's Justice League count as a film noir because they released a black and white version? But some people would say that it can only be in black and white. It can only be released between this year and this year. Some people say the Maltese Falcon is the first film noir.
You'll have black and white versions of newer movies where they'll do like Logan. They'll do like a black and white version, and sometimes they'll call that the noir cut. But you're like, is Logan a noir? Even if you make it black and white, is it a noir? It has elements. I can kind of see it. And then there's also a lot of westerns that get really close to noir, and Logan is doing the western thing in the noirish sort of way. So like I can kind of see it.
Yeah.
But I also can't.
So I'm going to try to.
It's like mise en scène, right? What is it?
Oh,
nobody knows what that means. Like, it's just a word that we bandy about. Nobody knows what that is.
It's something the French came up with so they could have some kind of authority on the new medium. So, but I'm going to try to meet all of the qualifiers of film noir, even though it's kind of pointless to do that.
Okay.
But this is probably my favorite film noir.
Put this on for him. I'm not going to have anything to say about this category.
It's Stanley Kubrick's third feature film. It's called The Killing, and it's a heist movie that I think, for a longest time I thought, oh, this is the heist movie that inspired everything else. I think a lot of filmmakers after this were looking at The Killing. I think The Killing is looking at something else as well, but it's a pretty stock heist movie, and it's very much draped in what we think of when we think film noir. There's a narrator who says he talks like this.
There's purple prose.
It stars a bunch of character actors who were never really that big, and then it's pretty straightforward. And then the heist happens, and then it does the thing where it jumps back in time to the beginning, and you see it from another person's perspective, and then it jumps back in time and it does it from another person's perspective.
So it's not non-linear.
It's not. It's only like non-linear for like a certain segment of the movie when you get to the heist. It
sounds almost like vignettes if they were the same story.
But that's the thing, is like up until that point, it is very straightforward. It's very procedural. The narrator tells you this person is doing exactly this at exactly this time. This person at that time is doing this, and so you're keeping all of the the eye on the prize of just the heist element. And sometimes the characters can be a little stock, but it plays into convention in such an earnest way that it is sort of a prime example of what I think a noir is. And it has probably my favorite ending to any movie. Like the very end, I think is perfect.
When did that come out?
1956, I believe. It's one of Kubrick's earliest. I think it's his first real studio movie. And you can see a lot of that very precise camera movements and some of that stuff that would come later. He wrote the screenplay, and then somebody else is given a dialogue credit. But I think it is more, he wrote an initial draft, somebody just came in and hard-boiled it up, and then they only got a dialogue credit. But
a lot of people feel like you can't make a modern noir because noir is as much a period as it is a genre. So like you have to be within a particular time frame and be doing a mystery that checks all those boxes and has that kind of shadow work and all of that stuff. So if you could open this up to all time and include what people consider neo-noir, I'm probably going to Sin City at that point.
I guess so.
But Sin City's not a real noir because it doesn't happen that early. So then Maltese Falcon's the obvious choice, and I do really, really like that movie. And I haven't seen it forever, so I can't really speak to it right now. Mm-hmm. But I liked it a lot the last time I saw it. And then it had a lot of really interesting symbolism and stuff that I can't talk about right now. And then I guess Chinatown also kind of falls in that category. And maybe...
Yeah.
But then is that too late? 74? Like, is that too late?
Yeah, you know what I say? Who cares?
Who cares? Okay. Fair enough.
If you want to call Sin City a film noir, go for it. It's playing entirely into the conventions of it. So that's what I thought this would be kind of fun to make fun of the snootiness surrounding the noir argument, because some people would say, oh, Maltese Falcon, the first film noir. Some people say, and it's like, well, why not? Come on now, get over yourselves, you French people.
Yeah, so I mean, if it counts, I'm going with Sin City. If it doesn't, I'm going with Chinatown. If that doesn't, I'm going with Maltese Falcon. There you go.
Awesome.
Let's move on, shall we?
What do you like about Sin City?
Oh, well, watch the rewind. Everybody knows what I like about Sin City. No, it's that's a movie that I still go back to. It's crazy watchable, and it's still really unique. Like, we've had so many things that were influenced and inspired by that have tried to do that, like, comic look on green screen thing where you forget you're watching a movie and it feels like you really are somehow inside of a moving comic book. And I don't think anything has achieved it the way Sin City did.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I love Sin City. Somehow it works in spite of itself for me. It plays by its own set of rules, and you can't hold it to modern story conventions. And it is like, Miller understood what, like, real melodrama is, and melodrama has its own totally different set of rules. And it's also one of those things that, like, transcends my sensibilities. Okay. And so a lot of my favorite movies are things where I didn't like this particular genre or this kind of story before I saw the thing that won me over. Like, I've said this before, but my favorite thing watching a movie is when I walk in and I'm like, I don't care about this, and I walk out completely won over. And that's what something like Sin City does to me. I also really like vignette films, and there just aren't enough good ones. Yeah, and that's one where some of the case, like, I do like, for example, of the books, I think Big Fat Kill, Big Hard Kill. What's the first one called? Sorry, that's the one that's the third one.
Yeah.
The Long Goodbye.
Long Goodbye.
That one is just as good in a book as it is on screen.
Yeah.
But then something like the Big Fat Kill. I think that's the one with Clive Owen, who plays Dwight.
I'm pretty sure that's the name of that one. Yeah.
And I actually like that more in the movie than I do in the book.
Yeah.
And then I think that That Yellow Bastard is. I think I actually like the book just a little bit more than the movie version, but I do really like the movie version.
Yeah.
So it's really fun.
And I mean, I'm a lot more familiar with the movie version. I've read each of those once, but it's been a long time.
It's been a while for me. I've been meaning to go back to Sin City, both the movies and the comics.
And I think I also just appreciated, and I mean, yeah, there's deviations and stuff, but I always appreciated like going to the actual comics as storyboards, because they are, and there's a lot of things that you can translate more or less straight. There are other things you can't, like Batman Year One. That's a comic book. If you want to make it a movie, you're gonna have to make it a movie.
Yeah. Do you have any runner? Well, I guess Chinatown and Maltese Falcon.
That's all I really had.
I'm not too well versed in film noir. I like Maltese Falcon too, but I'd say Double Indemnity.
I like just the look and the feel of it. I mean, I think at the end of the day, my actual response to this isn't a movie. It's Batman the Animated Series. Like,
yeah, there you go. That's great. I'll take it. But I'd say Double Indemnity. That movie's just really cool. And
I've never seen that.
I think you would like it. That's a movie where it could be a really cool movie depending which POV of the characters, because from every perspective that's a cool movie. But the one they chose to tell it from is the noir place. And that'd be cool. It's a cool movie. So
we get now into musical. Mm-hmm. And what is your favorite musical?
Oh, no, it's your turn.
Oh, is it my turn? Yeah. Oh, okay. My actual favorite musical is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but I put that in my top 20, I'm pretty sure. So I guess after that, it gets really dicey. It's hard to say what I would put up front. Well, no, okay. The more I'm thinking about it, I'm not going to say what's in my phone. Because I wasn't thinking about this. It is Mary Poppins.
Oh, okay.
That is the answer to that. The Tuppence song, like, I tear up every time.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah. I cannot help myself. Yeah, it's wonderful.
I actually finally saw that recently. About a year or so ago.
It wasn't a big thing for me growing up, but I had this thing several years ago when Saving Mr. Banks came out, where it just clicked with me, and it wasn't because of Saving Mr. Banks. Like, I watched that movie again just a couple months before Saving Mr. Banks came out, and I had a totally different experience with it. And then when I saw Saving Mr. Banks, it was like, as more of a Mary Poppins fan, it was weird.
Oh, interesting.
I still not seen that sequel because I've heard mixed things about it, and I wasn't sure if it was worth it. But
you don't need to.
Okay.
It's the Force Awakens of Mary Poppins.
Well, what is the point of that?
I don't know.
You got to tell a different story.
I don't know. I almost fell asleep in that movie theater because I was so bored. But the original's really good, and if you haven't seen Mary Poppins, you absolutely should.
You know what that sounds like, then? It sounds like one of those direct-to-video sequels of animated Disney films.
Oh my!
But as a live-action movie, right? I haven't seen it, but is that what it is?
That's basically what it is.
Okay, there you go.
I would say my favorite musical...
Or 102 Dalmatians.
There was 102nd one, but So my favorite musical...
You know what that movie should have been?
What's that?
They cloned one of the dogs in a lab.
That would be good. My favorite musical. So musical is not a category I've seen enough of, I've realized.
Oh, okay.
So this one might not even, if you're a musical snob, you might not consider this because it's a diegetic musical. And it was on my list last time we were here. It was I think my second favorite movie of the decade.
I know what you're about to say.
Sing Street. It's a movie about
I still haven't seen that.
Kids in 1985, Dublin, Ireland, during that economic crisis. Kids' parents are getting divorced. Life sucks. He gets moved into a public Catholic school and is dealing with bullies, abusive older people in his life, and so he starts a rock band to woo a girl and realizes it's a great outlet for his expression, and it kind of takes on its own love and interest of its own for him. It's magnificent. The songs, obviously it's about a bunch of teenagers who just get absurdly good at music right away, but maybe you could see it as it's good. It's this good of music to us because it is this good of music to them. But sure. It's magnificent. If you haven't seen it, you should. It used to be on Netflix. I don't know if it is anymore, but I am a public advocate for that. I don't know if I really have any other musicals. I like La La Land, but not really as a musical. I don't know.
Other runners-up, or runners-up for me would be My Fair Lady,
okay.
Which I've only seen a couple times. It's one of my wife's favorite musicals, and I never bothered with it because it just didn't sound like my thing. And then Sarah finally made me watch that, I think right after we got married or right before, and I was like, well, you didn't pitch it the way you should have pitched it, Sarah, because it's all about nuances of the English language and writing, and it's really clever with turns of phrase and stuff, and making fun of the inconsistencies in the language and just how weird English is. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that's what this movie was about. It's wonderful, and a lot of that is in the music, and I haven't seen it in a long time, but it's great. And then Nightmare Before Christmas, but just the music.
That's a good distinction to make.
Yeah. And Charlotte's Web.
Okay. I've not seen My Fair Lady, but
you really like it. It's great.
But as I've been here,
yeah,
they just put out a new 4K restoration of it that I've been meaning to purchase so I can watch it in the next week or so. So
okay.
The timing, by the time this goes up, I might have already seen My Fair Lady.
It's possible.
It's possible.
But I think this might go up over the weekend. I'm not sure yet.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah. You could be on an airplane when this goes up. We are maybe halfway through, not quite halfway through.
We're a little over halfway through, I think.
Okay. Let me take a break real quick.
Okay, cool. Hey everybody, I'm Captain Logan, and welcome back to the bunker. Today we're talking about coasters. I got a Batman coaster. I got it because it fits with the bunker. Got a Batman theme going on here. The Day Ghost sends in a $5 super chat. Thank you for your support, Austin. And he says, and it's Canadian, so maybe it's not. He can't be trusted. But Mutale also asks if you've heard about the Batgirl movie being directed by the Bad Boys for Life directors, who are also directing Ms. Marvel. You see, I have not seen Bad Boys for Life, so I don't really know what that is. I mean, I know what the franchise is, but I don't know what that movie is like, and I haven't seen anything else they've done because Ms. Marvel's not out, of course. So, I don't know really what to expect. Sorry, I don't really know what to expect. My father-in-law got me this. This is the Gold Ranger staff. I have it around here. It makes a lot of noise when I turn it on, but Mikey's down for a nap, so I don't want to wake him up. How you doing?
Hello, Connor Nelson.
Hola. I think we're talking westerns now.
Cool, this should go quick.
Oh yeah, this should be fast. I won.
Yep. Okay, we move on now to westerns. And Connor, what is your favorite western? I'm assuming this is like me, not a category that you're real well versed in.
More so in the last year.
Really?
Well, I've watched a bunch of westerns from 1969, which I don't know. That's all coincidental, and they all happen to be about the end of the West. The railroads are coming, and it's all about the end of the West. That's what Once Upon a Time in the West is about. That's what all...
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and that's Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and True Grit, and all these things are about the aging...
The day the music died.
Exactly. So I was thinking, obviously, if I had to go with the greatest, this is all about favorites. But if I had to pick the greatest, it's The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. That movie rocks. But I'm actually going to go with Sergio Leone's, not his third movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, in the Dollars trilogy, Man with No Name trilogy, whatever you want to call it. I'm going with the second one for a few dollars more. That one still has Clint Eastwood, still playing the Man with No Name, but this one has the character of Colonel Mortimer, who is one of the most fascinating movie characters I have seen in a while. He's actually a pretty stock type of a character, but Lee Van Cleef, I think, is the actor. He brings such a presence to this character about a man who is trying to avenge something that happened in the past. And that backstory is revealed throughout. But it also just really works as a heist movie and an infiltration movie and a partnership movie where the Man with No Name and Mortimer are at odds with one another, but it's like a rocky alliance. They're trying to take on someone worse than them. And it's just got one of a god tier musical score. It is by the same composer who did like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and some other stuff. He did the music for The Thing, actually.
Oh, okay.
But I imagine the music like that. Ennio Morricone's music will greet me at the gates of heaven, or whatever afterlife there is. It is that amazing, and for a few dollars more, I think that's one that kind of gets swept under the rug a little bit because it's not the first one. It's not the big great one.
Yeah, I've heard of that, but I didn't know what it was.
But and I didn't know really what I was getting myself in for. And so when it really got going, I thought, man, this is cool. I could watch. That's probably the one I'll go back to the most often because while Good, the Bad, the Ugly is the big, great one, it's also 3 hours long. It's also more of a war movie. It's a Civil War movie.
Yeah.
And so as far as getting my Western itch,
there's a lot of Westerns that kind of fall between those categories.
Yes. And so, but this one it's a Western heist movie for a good portion of it. And that's a little blend that I never, because there's always like bank robbing that are happening, but this one is like a legit heist that's getting planned. And so it's a lot of fun.
So I'm not a big Western guy, and my favorite is a movie that I haven't seen in probably 15 years, so I can't really speak to it much, but I loved it when I saw it, and I've always touted it as my favorite. I just need to break down and go back and watch it, because I'm not going to be very articulate about it right now, but it's High Noon, which, have you seen it?
I have seen it.
Which establishes a lot of the big Western tropes, of course, and I just remember the cinematography being really cool, and I remember being surprised by the pacing of that movie. It didn't feel period paced. It felt real modern paced. And I remember really appreciating the clock motif, and that's what I remember about that movie. I need to see it again.
Well, I think that the clock motif and the pacing is because it's all taking place in real time.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And And that's what I think makes it feel so modern. One thing I really remember about it
I remember the sense of urgency in that movie, yeah.
Frank Miller is coming.
Yes! Yes!
We gotta take out Frank Miller. He's gonna turn our town into Sin City, and we don't want that, okay? It'll make a great film noir someday, it's not a good place to live.
It was an unintended prequel to Sin City.
Yeah.
It makes that movie a lot more tragic. That city turned into Sin City. The original Magnificent Seven,
which I have not seen.
You should. It's great.
I really
have you seen the remake?
I didn't watch
because I haven't seen that, and I heard it was surprisingly okay.
It's a solid action movie, and of course it's got Denzel. I mean, he's Denzel. He's really good in it. He kind of carries a lot of it.
And Denzel doesn't pick a lot of bad projects.
He doesn't. And that one also had Chris Pratt and Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yeah.
And Ethan Hawke. Three of my favorite character, I guess. Not.
It feels like a cast that does not go together, but yeah, Chris Pratt is not a character actor, but I like him.
Yeah. Ethan Hawke is so good. I love Ethan Hawke.
And then the other runner-up I would throw in is the remake to True Grit. So I've seen the original Magnificent Seven, but not the remake, and I've seen the remake of True Grit, but not the original True Grit.
I love the original True Grit. If you ever get the chance to watch it, and I think the biggest mistake I made in preparing to watch the remake of True Grit was watching the original.
So then you didn't care for the remake?
It was just a lot because they're based on a book.
Yeah.
And I guess they're both very faithful adaptations of that book.
Oh.
And so.
But what, in different ways or something?
Well, they're shot differently. You know, the Coen Brothers has a lot more of that Coen Brothers dialogue, and it looks better because they got that cinematographer. But
what do you mean when you say it was a mistake to watch the original?
It's just so much more fun.
Oh, really?
And those characters, I think, are just much more entertaining to watch. The actors' dynamic is they're taking it a little less seriously.
I was going to say, do you think it takes itself too seriously, that second version?
To the degree where I don't know what half the people are saying. And so
I just thought Jeff Bridges was kind of brilliant.
He's great, and he is really good. And that's like the one where I'm like, I don't necessarily know what he's saying, but he's really, really good. But man, John Wayne is so good. I mean, he's just doing his John Wayne thing.
Yeah.
But again, it's the end of the Western. It's the big cowboy retiring and doing his last big mission. But yeah, no. If you ever get the chance to watch, I mean, both. If most people like both True Grit movies, so if you get the chance to watch it, check it out if you can. My runner-up is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. There you go. And I'm watching these so I can eventually watch Unforgiven because I know that's Clint Eastwood's last Western.
See, John Wayne's sort of like Keanu Reeves in that, because I know that's a weird comparison. in that they both are very often giving the same performance, but it's versatile in different things. So it isn't that they have a lot of range and they do a lot of different things. It's that you almost have to say like the versatility is on the part of like good writers who realize how they could incorporate what they do in a different way. Mm-hmm. So like I don't think I've said this before, but I don't think good acting necessarily means broad range you disappear all the time. I think you can do the same thing every time, and that just it makes you like really niche and you only work for certain things, but that thing you do, nobody else can do that. And that was John Wayne. Like nobody else could do John Wayne, but John Wayne couldn't do anything but John Wayne. And Keanu Reeves is that way.
Yeah, I like that comparison. And I wanted to quickly mention The Wild Bunch is a movie that after the first 30 minutes is like really cool. And that as an action movie rocks.
Oh wow!
It is 1969. You will be shocked this got away.
Really?
The ending is one of the bloodiest things I've ever seen on a
What's it called again?
The Wild Bunch. It has Ernest Borgnine.
Oh wow!
And a lot of like those Western actors. Again, End of the West, 1969 movie about a bunch of tough guys doing one last big thing. But I was floored by.
It's really weird that you ended up watching a bunch of stuff in 1969.
It was all coincidental, yeah. But that was shocking. They got away with some of this.
Speaking of John Wayne, did you ever see Mcclintock?
No, what is that?
It's a weird movie.
What is it?
So it's not End of the West. It's Mcclintock with an exclamation point. And John Wayne is I can't remember if he's a sheriff. Well, I haven't seen this in a long time. But what I remember being really strange about it is sometimes a really serious, heartfelt, kind of pushing the envelopes drama, and at other times it's a total farce.
Okay.
And like it has farcical sequences, and with the same act. It's not like we go to a subplot where like John Wayne is in both kinds of scenes, and it's just one of the most tonally uneven things I've ever seen. It's almost as if it's like if John Wayne was playing his own Balkan Skull. It's really weird.
Okay, I'm gonna have to write that down because I've never even heard of that. So that's
I found it on I don't know, HBO Max or something. I can't remember.
All right, so I started that one. You want to go into
sports? Yeah, we move on now to sports. And my favorite sports movie, of course, is Field of Dreams, but that I talked about before, so I'm gonna pick something different this time. And I don't know, I'm kind of between a couple for the top. I guess I have to say Rocky, which is the obligatory answer, but I love it, and it's one of my favorite films now, so good. I have to do that. And then Creed would be a runner-up, and I would be really difficult to put one above the other because I think Creed and Rocky are absolutely of equal quality.
They are, and Rocky is the strangest cry I've ever had while watching it. I've never cried. I don't cry watching very many movies. I think only 10 have gotten me to cry, and that was one of them. Something about it just really hit me. The part where Mickey comes to visit him, and he feels like kind of used. Like you never cared about me.
Yeah.
All these years I've known you, but now because I have a shot, he just unloads as like Mickey's just standing outside, and it hit me in a way like I didn't realize the movie was working that well for me by that point.
Rocky's another one of those movies that I would put in a list of movies that should win an award for world building, especially over those films, because it feels it always feels really genuine and real watching, particularly that first movie, but it is of course in a world all its own. And its sense of visual details and stuff is really good. Every time I watch that movie, I pick up on something I haven't before, and there's a lot of storytelling that's happening in like placement of props and stuff. Okay. And that's one of the things I've always really appreciated about that movie. Obviously, it's like the quintessential underdog story, so Rocky is just inherently likable because he's not a super bright, smart man, and he's not even the best boxer, but he's got this like moral center that you can't deny, and that's the thing I've always really appreciated about that character. And again, it's one of those movies that wins me over because I don't care about boxing, but when I'm watching those, I do. I agree, yeah, and that's one of those things.
And
it's not even like I'm watching it despite the boxing. It's that like for the 2 hours I'm there,
you are a boxing fan.
I care about boxing. Yeah.
I want to continue watching that franchise because I guess I missed the Rocky train as a younger kid. I did too. My wife had to show them to me. That's awesome. And when I was working at the mortuary back when I was in college, Sarah and I watched one every night for a week until we finished it. And at that point, Rocky Balboa was the last one. So we watched 6 movies in a row, 6 nights in a row. And 5 is awful, but that was great. So Creed 3 is coming out, and it's being directed by Michael B. Jordan.
Is he actually directing it?
Yeah, he's directing it.
I didn't know that.
Which has me interested, but a little worried because I'm always... But I know Stallone started directing with Rocky sequels as well. So
that's pretty cool.
I really want to know what that's going to be.
We might not be saying that after we see it.
That's true.
If it turns out he just doesn't have the chops for that. Like, I hope he does. He's a talented guy, and I'm hoping that he's that versatile too, but that's really cool.
Yeah.
The most impressive thing about Creed 1 and 2 to me is that they feel like they could have been directed by the same person.
That's true.
Not.
Yeah.
Like the standard of quality is just there between those movies. If you told me that the same guy directed that, I would believe you.
It does.
But he didn't.
Very consistent. And I hope and that's something I think that is a good...
Also, I'm going to cry foul if Rocky doesn't die in 3. He has to. He has to die in 3. It has to happen.
Yeah. So...
Do you not agree with me?
Oh, well, I haven't seen the Rocky movies. I've seen the first Rocky movie, and I didn't watch the first Rocky movie until after I watched the second Creed movie. So I'm undecided on that.
Okay, so can I tell you partly why I'm saying that though?
Why is that?
Because it's not just like paralleling the Rocky movies where it's like we killed off Mickey, so we got to kill. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not just that. Call me morbid, but if the Creed movies keep going, I want him to die in the film so that we don't have to kill him off screen when eventually Sylvester Stallone passes away.
That's a good point.
So it needs to happen at not here or the next. It needs to happen at some point. He's getting up in years. And I'm not saying, I'm expecting Sylvester Stallone to die tomorrow. He seems like he's in good shape and he's still acting and doing projects and stuff. But I'm just saying, like,
Dude's
get
in his 70s.
Get it done at some point. He's in his 70s.
And
is that a horrible thing to say?
No. He took steroids and all those things that kind of come back to haunt you later in life.
Yeah.
So you were talking about, sports that you just don't really care about, but the movie got you to care about this.
Yeah.
So I like cars. I don't give a crap about car racing. Like oh, you just go in a circle, you want to try whatever.
Did you pick Ford versus
Ferrari?
Ferrari?
I did not.
Okay,
that's
okay.
a good guess.
I thought
though.
that's where you were going. Yeah. I love that movie.
It's a great. That movie has a special place in my heart.
It's really good. I've seen it one time, but that was the first movie I watched after my cancer surgery.
Really?
I was laid up for a week and I was watching stuff, and that was the first movie I watched.
That was the last.
So it's a little delirious. I don't remember everything about that, but yeah.
That was the last movie my grandpa got to see in a movie theater, and I took him to go see that.
And he was a big car guy.
He was a huge. He raced cars.
And you said he owned like 2,000 cars.
Over his life, he's owned like over 2,000 cars.
Oh, so not like at the same time. He didn't have like a car museum.
No.
Okay.
He owned like a dealership as like a side thing while he was a brick mason. Yeah. So
interesting.
That movie does hold a special place in my heart, but I'm not going with that. Now I kind of feel like a jerk for not going with that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I had to stop you because I was like, I've got a good guess. I think I might be right.
No, it's a good guess. So I'm going with Speed Racer.
What? Speed Racer?
This movie's great. Okay?
I like that movie, but I think that is too flawed of a film to put at the top of a category.
I don't know, man. I think that
Speed Racer
is great, okay? And I will hear none of this, ooh, it's actually bad. No. The critics had this wrong. Visually, it hasn't aged super well in certain places. I'll grant that, but I do think that the movie...
It's got massive pacing issues, though.
But it's paced like an anime of that era, where it is so nutty, but so sincere.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where...
That's what I like about it.
I would put it in a similar category as something like Aquaman, where you're like, how did you convince a studio to let you make that?
That's true.
But unlike Aquaman... I'm actually emotionally invested when the character stuff does start happening.
No, that's fair.
20-minute, like the opening sequence is cool because it is a race, but they also understand that a race is not always exciting. So when it's not the exciting part of a race, you jump back in time to get backstory filled out. And then it will come back to the interesting...
That's what I didn't like about it, was the structure stuff was really weird.
And somehow that played for me.
Oh, okay.
And so by the time I'm 20 minutes in...
I only saw it the one time.
And they're finishing the race, and he sees like the ghost of his brother, and he decides to let his brother keep the record of like that race course. I was like, oh, I'm surprisingly emotionally stirred by it. What's happening, and it has a bunch of running gags that I like. But as it's a fun metaphor that you can really apply to anything. It's about the film industry. It's about the writing industry. It's a movie whose story is. You can apply it to really anything. It is about, the purity of creativity and industry trying to step in and capitalize on it and diminish your creativity. And I thought that the story was going to go in the direction of, and then Speed sells out. But he doesn't. End of Act 1 is he sticks to his morals. And then he has to start racing on like the dingy side of things. So he has to like build up his thing without a sponsor. And so there's all of those elements about it, that I find a little subversive, but then that's what gets you to the stuff that you know about Speed Racer, where he's racing against gangsters who are like out of a 20s mob movie, and then there's
it gives you a clever reason that he's doing that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
And I think that the performances are
on Hot Wheel tracks.
The performances are so perfectly tuned to what they're in. John Goodman as Pops Racer.
Yeah, he's great.
He has a line that I've tried to convince people to watch this movie on. It's never worked because it's a lame line, but the way he delivers it is great when he says, when somebody asks, wait, was that a ninja? And he says, more like a nanja. It's pathetic what passes for a ninja these days. But as far as world building goes, there's a lot of details that are just all over that movie that do inform character stuff later on.
He gets that role because of Fred Flintstone, right? They're like,
Probably.
He's embodied a cartoon character before really well. And The Flintstones is not a good script, but he's brilliant in it.
And who else do you cast as like Fred Flintstone? But the best thing about that world is
but he is really good at it.
Oh, he's great. But his name is Pops Racer.
Yeah.
That was his name when he was a kid. His name was Pops.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
That's his name.
It's really funny.
And this kid's
name
name
is grow into it.
His name is Speed. His name has always been Speed Racer. When he was in school, they said, "Stop drawing cars and stop pretending to race all the time." How? His name is Speed Racer.
It's a little prophetic, yeah. That guy is either going to be exactly what his name sounds like, or the opposite of that.
Yeah, exactly. So I actually really love Speed Racer, and I want to watch it. I want to own it pretty soon and watch it again with some. That's something that
Boy, that was an off the beaten path pick. And you were telling me the other day that you liked that movie, that you had seen that recently and you liked it, but I didn't expect it to show up on a list. Wow.
I mean, obviously the best sports movie I've seen is Rocky.
Yeah.
But
That's his favorite, so you can write down whatever you want to. And I'm not giving you crap for picking that. I was just surprised. Yeah. No, I like that movie too. I don't think I like it as much as you do, but I like it. Runners up for sports movies. I already is it Rocky Creed I talked about. I just saw 42.
Oh, the Jackie Robinson.
Yeah, and it's fantastic.
How is Chadwick in that?
He's brilliant.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know that
everybody should see that movie. It's really good. And Harrison Ford's really good in it too.
That's what I remember. That was like one of the last movies I heard people say, "Oh no, Harrison Ford's actually trying in this one, guys. He's great.
He's really good." And he does a crazy voice and it works.
That's good.
He does this, period voice. And
That's good. I guess we're moving into romance now.
Romance. I forgot we were doing romance. I wrote something down for romance, didn't I?
I think so. I hope you did.
You know what? I had that later, but that's fine. We can totally do that. I meant to go back and look a little bit for some other good choices for romance. Is it your turn to start?
I think it's my turn.
Why don't you go ahead and do that?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I am going to pick a 1927 film called Sunrise, with the subtitle "A Song of Two Humans." This is a silent movie directed by F.W. Murnau, who's probably best well known for doing Nosferatu. He was one of those German expressionist guys, and I guess German movies were getting very popular in the States and during the silent era. And then, so Hollywood was courting a lot of those German filmmakers to come over. So this it kind of historically is a little interesting. It is one of the Best Picture winners at the first Academy Awards because they had two categories, which was basically Best Popular Picture and Best Artistic Picture. And then the popular category won. And then 90 years later, they said, we should have a popular category. But this won Best Artistic Movie. And so it's interesting that this comes out as late as it does, because this is sort of seen as the last milestone of the silent era.
Okay.
And what's interesting is that I'm pretty sure they knew as they were making it, this was sort of the end of the silent.
I don't know if I've ever seen a silent romance.
It works surprisingly well.
I've seen silent horror and science fiction and a number of things, and comedy, but I don't know if I've ever seen a silent romance.
But so Sunrise is interesting because it starts off with a title card that says, this is very on the nose, silent era, where they say, this is a story that could happen at any place with any person or whatever. It's a universal story. But what I think of course, the movie's very old fashioned, and you could say it hasn't aged well. But I think the expressionist elements that F.W. Murnau does make it almost timeless. And some of the things you cannot take literally, and that's what I like about it. And there's so much iconic images with this, like the way they do double exposure to have like a ghostly woman following somebody. But it's the story about a farmer and his wife. And I would just say right now, maybe jump ahead of this if you want to know nothing. I would highly recommend knowing nothing about the movie going in. But I will give you the general setup where the farmer is having an affair with the woman from the city. And she says, kill your wife and we'll run off to the city together.
Kill your wife,
and we'll run off to the city together. We'll sell your farm and we'll go to the city together. And then he gets her on the boat.
That's quite a hook right there.
Yeah, and then he does so he lures her onto the boat to drown her, and he's gonna float away with like thistles or whatever. And then he decides to not kill his wife. And what happens after that is one of the most unexpected, beautiful, magical movies I've ever seen in my life. This might be one of my top 3 favorite movie for me. Depending on the day, my favorite movie. The story is pretty much resolved halfway through it. And from there, it just becomes basically vignettes of things happening that just whisked me away. And what's really cool about this is that it sort of acts as like a Rosetta Stone, because this is before film noir. This is before like Ginger Rogers, Fred Astaire dancing musicals. This is before the screwball comedy really got started with It Happened One Night. This is before the Universal monster movies. But all of that cinematic language is in this movie. Like, it's before Hitchcock, and that hook is a Hitchcock hook.
Yeah.
And like the woman from the city's in black, she's like the femme fatale. And it feels like kind of like a seedy setup, like a film noir. And like, I don't know, it's so dazzling that it shook me to my core. I tried showing this to a couple of people. They've tended to be bored by it, but I love it wholeheartedly, and I think it's perfect. But that's my pick for romance.
I may have to take a look at that at some point.
I wonder if it's streaming anywhere, but I think it is.
It's weird because this is a category that I feel like I just haven't seen a newer movie that falls well into in a lot of years. Like I've just been kind of out of. I'm not saying they don't get made necessarily, but I haven't seen like a straight up romance or romantic comedy in a really long time. And my mind blanked on this category. I felt like I needed to like go back really like in the annals of my history and like look for things. So I don't have a good answer for this. I finally saw for the first time a few months ago Casablanca, which is probably the obvious choice, or at least the obvious like classic choice. So that's probably what I'm going with.
But it's a great movie.
Yeah, no, it really is, and just a lot of like really good chemistry between those characters, and one of those movies that like it falls between a couple of different genres. So, like it's not just a romance, and sometimes like having a couple that is falling in love in the middle of something like really tense makes the relationship work better. But then I don't know. Beyond that, I think the best answer I can come up with is Back to the Future 3.
With Doc Brown.
Yeah, it's like solid romance.
Well, that's good. Yeah. So you probably don't have any like runners up because
I just didn't think of anything great. Like
that's fine, I understand. So my runners up, two of them are in the same series.
Interesting.
So my pick was Sunrise.
Yeah.
With no connection.
Well, and I want to say Eternal Sunshine, but I haven't seen it in so long.
Oh,
I can't speak to that at all right now. Yeah.
So
that might be in there.
Without any connection to Sunrise, there's a film called Before Sunrise, from 1995. I have this I know I have this queued up for you to review at some point.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
This stars Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy. It is about two people who meet on a train and they talk for an hour and a half.
That's great.
And they just walk around Vienna and they talk, and it's great. And then they made.
See, I know I've seen movies like that that I like. Just nothing's coming to me.
I remember thinking when I first watched it, this is the best written film I've ever seen.
Wow.
And it does not feel scripted.
Yeah.
It feels so spontaneous.
So it's got that My Dinner with Andre thing.
Yes. And then the sequel, they made a sequel 9 years later called Before Sunset. And
is it also good?
Now that I've seen it again, I think it might be better than the first.
Yeah.
So these are movies directed by the person who made School of Rock. Richard Linklater. He also made Boyhood.
Yeah.
And
that's one of those versatile directors that'll do any kind of movie.
And he so then in the sequel, it's co-written by the director and the two actors, Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy. Julie Delpy is one lady from Age of Ultron who has like 4 lines. She's like the trainer or whatever. But of the Black Widow people, I wonder if they'll bring her back. They probably won't. But then they made a third one. They make them 9 years apart from one another. Now, I don't have the third one on this list of runners-up because I have not rewatched it yet.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling if I rewatch it, I would have 3 runners-up that are all in the same series. It is quality control like you have not seen before. It is magnificent. And it probably helps that they came out 9 years apart. But if I had to do something that isn't a before movie, I would say the Studio Ghibli film Ocean Waves.
Oh, I've never seen that.
Nobody has. Barely anybody has, because it was a TV movie.
Okay.
And it's the only Studio Ghibli movie that doesn't have a dub, because a lot of those dubs were supervised by Disney, and this movie just didn't have any international distribution before 2016. So it's finally, you can watch it now. It's from the early 90s, but it's a teen melodrama, but it's really, really good. And I'm an advocate for that movie because I know it is kind of an underrated, and even people who love Ghibli went back to that and thought, but I don't know what those people are drinking because I think it's magnificent.
Okay, now that I'm thinking of things, let me say this real quick, okay? Before we move on, I'm gonna throw out 2 more really mainstream goofy picks at you.
Okay.
One of them is Deadpool, and I don't care what anybody says, and the other one is Up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And Up is cool because it's a romance with only one half of the couple.
Yeah.
And that's
because she's dead the whole movie.
And it's spectacular.
Yep.
Oh, it's so good. It's a romance movie. It's a film about romance, and
yeah.
that's a way of looking at it I never actually thought of.
A movie is about like 2 people who have been in love and previously or who are currently together as opposed to getting together in the first place, which is sort of like separating the superhero movie from superhero adventure movie from the origin film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so you have romantic origin films.
That's true. Yeah.
Right?
Okay. That's man. I never thought about this.
Me neither. But that's interesting.
So
what do we move on to now?
Fantasy.
Fantasy. Well, I guess, do I have to go first?
I guess you do.
Or is it your turn?
I think it's your turn to go.
Oh, well then I'm just gonna get it out of the way because I'm not a big fantasy guy, and I like Lord of the Rings movies fine, but I'm always kind of bored by them, and I have a hard time not falling asleep. I'm sorry, it's just where I'm at.
Heresy, destroy it.
So I have to kind of cop out and just say Onward.
Oh yeah.
I can't help myself because I love that movie.
That movie's great.
You and I reviewed it, and just for all the reasons I talked about there, the stuff that resonated with me with that with those brothers, and that they had a really fun mythology that I was kind of able to sink my teeth into, and I enjoyed what they did with tabletop gaming in that. I thought that was cool. And
in our review, you talked about how they commodify history in an interesting way.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Mm-hmm. I've only seen it the one time, but
I've gone back to that a few times.
No, I've seen it twice because I showed it to Sarah.
Mm-hmm. Did she like it?
Yeah, she loved it.
Oh, that's great. Okay, because I know that movie did not catch on the way I thought it would, and I really, really liked it.
Yeah, some people didn't care for it.
My pick for fantasy, and I'm also not a huge fantasy guy, but I had seeded Studio Ghibli a little bit earlier, and I am going to go with Princess Mononoke. Which I think is the best Studio Ghibli flick. It is a movie I've seen maybe 3 times now. I've seen it in theaters once for sure, and that's another movie. It has a perfect ending. Have you seen that movie? Okay.
I haven't. I've seen a few of their movies, but not that one.
Okay. It's interesting because it is very much Miyazaki going back to the well of deforestation, environment stuff.
That's where he lives.
Yeah, he's in Nausicaa.
Which I love.
And
love Nausicaa.
Nausicaa's cool because it does feel like the patient zero of everything that Miyazaki would go on to do.
Yeah, but I don't know. At least the things I've seen, I don't know if the animation ever gets any better than Nausicaa, man. That is a gorgeous freaking movie.
Mononoke is god tier animation.
I'm sure it does, but I fell in love with the look of that movie.
No, Nausicaa does look amazing. So what I really liked about as a fantasy film, what Princess Mononoke does is it hits all of the conventions, I think, in such a way that I've never seen it done more classier. It does have the hero who he never really resists the call. He something happens to him and he knows his place and what he has to do, and you run the risk of that character being kind of boring.
Yeah,
but it is a bit of a Superman kind of story where he's all good and he has to leave his village and he goes into the world that is just full of all kinds of...
that's true about Superman because he never used to resist the call, and the big difference now is he almost always does, right? Yeah.
But he goes into the world and he has to lead by example, and there are the spirits and the gods and demons who live in the woods, and the mankind who is fighting back, and deforestation and coal but it's not demonizing it's demonizing industry without demonizing the people who have to work in industry.
Okay.
And so there's a whole bit where he has to go to Irontown, which this isn't subtle, but he has to go to Irontown and he actually does work with the people there. And he tries to be a peacemaker, and but even though he tries to resist, there is a growing anger.
That's one of the charming things about a lot of animes, though, is just the lack of subtlety with that stuff.
Yeah, but there's a quietness and a heart to it that I find really inspiring. And so I would say it's probably definitely my favorite Ghibli flick, and it has a perfect ending image. I was thinking, I hope this movie ends this way, and then it did, and I clapped. I clapped, everybody, at the end.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I almost want to go back now and give Nausicaa a runners-up spot in science fiction, but I will do that for Ghost in the Shell, which I didn't think of, and I should have. But that's
a good one. Do you have any runners-up for fantasy?
Not really. I mean, I like Neverending Story from when I was a kid. I have a lot of nostalgia for that movie, but it's not a great movie.
Okay. I guess my runners-up are...
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, Troll 2. I'm just kidding.
Oh,
But I'm gonna say It's a Wonderful Life, which you had as drama, and I think that it maybe does fall into that, but it does have that fantasy third act.
See, when I think fantasy, I'm always thinking like sword and sorcery and that kind of thing. I never think the more subtle, like celestial fantasy, because like anything with a ghost would be fantasy.
Yeah. I guess Christmas Carol counts as fantasy.
Yeah.
But I would say It's a Wonderful Life. That movie, every passing year, I seem to like relate more and more to it.
Yeah.
And the great thing about that is I know I will continue to relate to it as the years go on, because there's stuff in that I can't quite identify with yet. And then the other one
still a youngin'.
I'm still a youngin', but the other fantasy runner-up is King Kong, the original King Kong, and I know
which also could fall into the next category very easily.
It could, and action adventure.
Oh, that's true.
I know you have not seen King Kong.
I'm sure at the time some people would have called it horror. And I know that sounds dumb, but they would have.
It will make you care about giant monkeys.
It will make you believe that a monkey can be giant.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't care about giant monkeys until I watched King Kong. Ooh, I'll try to make
like Christopher Reeve Superman. It will make you believe that a monkey can be giant.
Austin, get on that. Bag Studios with your Photoshop magic. Get on that. Okay.
So now we move on to epic / historical. And this is like the broadest anything could fall into this kind of category. So how are we doing the epic thing? Is it has to be an epic movie or a historical movie, or it has to be a historical film with scope and size and production value?
What I'm thinking when I think epic is scope and size and production value, but I also know that I've not seen a whole lot of epic movies, but like something like Schindler's List is a historical movie, but could also probably qualify it as an epic.
Yeah.
But it's not epic in the same way like Ben-Hur is just big epic entertainment or something.
Yeah.
So my personal, I was kind of like, this is a little, you get it.
Or Cleopatra, or
yeah, like this is a little
The Ten Commandments.
Player's choice.
Okay, sure.
I'm going by, it has to be at least 3 hours long.
I don't know if I did that.
Or like it has to be paced. Like epics have like a kind of a deliberate pacing, and they're always uneven.
I got close with these.
Yeah, and I'll trust you. So, is it your turn to go first?
I hope not. No, it's yours.
Oh, okay.
I totally did the last one, I think.
Yes,
because you made me go first in the fantasy category, which I didn't want to do, but I did it.
I'm gonna say The Return of the King, which could have been a fantasy movie, but I think as an example of epic filmmaking, I think it's the epic movie that kind of ended all epic movies. I can't think of another production except for maybe Infinity War and Endgame, just in terms of the size of the production and the cast and how much money they were sinking into it. But doggone it, those movies don't feel nearly as big as the Lord of the Rings movies do. Specifically Return of the King.
Yeah.
No,
that's true.
Every time I watch it, and I watch it every so often.
And those are comparable because a lot of the bigness with both of those has to be generated in a computer.
Yes. But you know, the Lord of the Rings, that was still when we were doing matte paintings and miniatures.
That's
and
true.
It is using all kinds of production tools, and it was innovating new kinds of computer generated imagery for that, and forced perspective, and like all sorts of really neat behind the scenes stuff. I know a lot of people, that's how they got into behind the scenes stuff, is the Lord of the Rings behind the scenes featurettes. But when I watch Return of the King, sometimes I just have to like take a second and think, somebody's job was to wake up in the morning and make this.
Yeah.
How do you do that? And I think about the process of that, and it's almost overwhelming. But as you watch it, the size and importance of what's happening on screen, it sweeps me up, and it makes me feel like I can't do it. You know, it's like some movies are so good that they make you want to make a movie. Like it make me want to make a movie. Some are just so good you think, why even bother?
Yeah.
You're never going to make anything half as amazing as this. And that's what the Return of the King is.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I don't have that with that movie.
Okay.
But it's not my favorite of the three.
Which one is?
I guess the second one.
The second one is really good. I could have also, that movie almost brings a tear to my eye because of the ending, because of just how apocalyptic that whole movie feels, and then the goodness comes, and it's so triumphant. I love it.
It's a little bit of that Empire thing, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, I like the scope of 3, but I'm in the camp that's like you got too many endings, and it takes 45 minutes to finish that movie, and I was already done and about ready to leave the movie theater because I'm not that emotionally invested in those characters, and so once the spectacle is done with that movie, I'm kind of done. Like I kind of don't care anymore.
Interesting.
But that's how I've always felt about it. I was there for the guys in like the medieval Spawn masks.
Oh yeah,
I love that stuff.
The Witch King and
yeah, that's awesome.
The endings have never bugged me.
That's fair.
I don't know. I guess I'm just more.
You're probably more into it than I am.
I guess, but I'm not really that much of a fantasy guy. I don't care about dwarves and elves. But I care about that for some reason.
You can't always explain why stuff hits you and resonates with you. So I'm gonna pick the maybe obvious thing for me, but then I have some decent runners up. So when I was doing my top 20 favorite movies, I avoided listing any superhero things because that's kind of I've reviewed those for years, and that's the thing I'm known for. But they're the people who watch me for the most part. But with this, I am not avoiding that, and so my answer has to be Richard Donner Superman.
Okay, I think that qualifies. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, the destruction of Krypton at the beginning, and it's also structured like an epic.
It absolutely is. Yeah. It's great.
Where do I come from? Who am I? Where am I going? Like, the 3 acts of that movie are like almost 3 different connected stories. Like it's structured like an epic.
And it does have like the sweeping Midwestern landscapes, and when he goes to like the ice, or it goes to the
Fortress of Solitude.
The Fortress. Is that in the Arctic or the Antarctic?
It's in the Arctic.
It's in the Arctic. You contrast that with the Golden Plains of Kansas and stuff. So I do think it is absolutely looking at epics too.
And like, I know it's not a huge cast; it's about one guy, but it's got the map paintings and the model work, and like there is a scale to that. If you didn't have the destruction of Krypton, you couldn't list it. But
you think so?
That I kind of think so. Okay, but that helps a lot.
And a lot of the principal cast doesn't show up till after the first act's over, like Lois Lane and Lex Luthor and all that.
Yeah.
So.
Which is really interesting. I've talked about that movie ad nauseum, but that is the more I'm thinking about it, that is my pick. Do you want to throw out some runners up?
Yeah, I mean, I love Ben-Hur
because I had a number of them for this.
I like Ben-Hur a lot.
I've never watched that.
There's like a bunch of versions of it.
I have seen Spartacus, but I've never seen Ben-Hur.
I think Ben-Hur is a better version of Spartacus.
Oh, interesting.
Even though it came out before Spartacus, but I have actually written an essay where I contrast Ben-Hur and Spartacus. If Ben-Hur was made by Stanley Kubrick the way Spartacus was, I think it would be like the best epic ever. But Ben-Hur's great. It has one of the most sensational action scenes that's ever been put to film. It's the chariot race.
Yeah.
If you can just watch that in isolation, and I think I think I have, but it's been a long time. It is like heart-stopping, and it holds up absolutely. And I think the other one, I guess Boyhood qualifies as an epic.
Does it really?
Well, it's like so long, and it literally takes place over 12 years, and it has a pretty decent sized cast, and it's epic in scale, but it's intimate in scope.
Because I feel like then there's a whole lot of like, you said historical. There's a whole lot of like biopics that would then fall into that, or that aren't even technically biopics because I guess they're more biopics because they take place over like somebody's whole life.
And honestly, my biopic, it could have qualified as an epic. So,
but I feel like a lot of things can.
I think you're right.
We considered putting War on this list, but we didn't, unless you did.
I put a war movie down.
Did you? Because we hadn't solidified that, so I can save the war one that I put in historical if we're doing war. But the other ones I listed were Last Samurai.
Oh, okay. I've never seen that.
That's spectacular. I watched that with Eric a couple of years ago, and then I also listed The Martian and Hacksaw Ridge. No, that's my war one. Oh. So I already told you about the war one. Gravity.
I've not seen Gravity. Okay.
Martian and Gravity, both people trapped in space movies.
I feel like for a while there, every like fall time, there was a big good science fiction movie. Yeah. And it starts with Gravity. But
it's weird because Gravity's not really a science fiction movie.
I guess so, yeah.
Because it takes place now with technology NASA has. It's not science. It's so awkward. Like, it is in that it's about science and it's a fiction, but it's not speculative because it's not futuristic. And not all science fiction has to be futuristic, but there's not any like new technology or anything. It's only science fiction by virtue that we live in a science fiction type world already. You know what I mean? Like, how many just straight up dramas now, if they were somehow made in the 60s, would be cyberpunk films?
That's true.
We just live in that world now.
We had space movies, I should say.
Space movies.
For a number, because it was 2013 was Gravity, 2014 was Interstellar, 2015 was The Martian, 2016 was Arrival, 2017 was Blade Runner 2049, which is more sci-fi than space, but whatever. And then I think
that's true, because then you have to go back to 2014 and throw Guardians in it at the point that you're listening to that. But
but these all came out like October. And then I think First Man, that Damien Chazelle.
First Man, I saw that.
Yeah, and like all of those are like coming out at the same time, trying to scratch that same itch. And I don't know, that was all started because of Gravity.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. It became kind of like an event, like a yearly event that we do, but not on purpose.
I mean, again, COVID, I think, just completely got rid of that.
I just mean not on purpose in that it's not like it was the same like film company
putting
one out every year, because we just got lucky that it was one a year and in about the same place. Not like we all came together and said, this is a new I don't know, this is a new thing that we're doing. This is a new tradition. Because what you'd think would happen is that thing that we used to see more often, and it's been a while since... I can't think of a good example of this for a lot of years, but we used to have this thing where a lot of companies would accidentally, it's just something's in the air, would accidentally put the same kind of like historical movie or something out the same year. So it'd be like, this is the year of like Western movies, and for some reason we're just doing a lot of those this year, and you know that kind of thing. And I can't remember the last time we've really had that, but that used to happen. You'd think that would happen with the space epic, where just this year it's just 3 space epics. You know what I mean? Like,
sometimes you get the duplicate movies, but that's a different thing because...
Okay, I was putting that in the same category because I was saying it's that thing with like Armageddon and Volcano, or not Armageddon and Deep Impact, and then you had Dante's Peak and Volcano, and
And then in 2013 there was Olympus Has Fallen, which was Die Hard in the White House, and then there was White House Down, which was Die Hard in the White House.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? How did that happen at the same time?
I saw. Oh wait, no, that's impossible. I was gonna say I saw trailers for both of those when I went to see Man of Steel, but Olympus Has Fallen already came out by that.
That'd be really funny though.
Yeah. Wait, didn't I just see a trailer for this? And then 2019, the space movie was Ad Astra, which I don't know if you saw that.
I did not see that.
I know that was really polarizing. I thought it was pretty good. But...
We move on now to animation. And it is, I believe, my turn to start.
Yes.
And I will indulge myself with the Lego Movie.
Excellent choice.
Because how you not? The whole meta conceit in that is brilliant. I could never have possibly seen it coming. And all of the stuff about individuality versus just doing what you're told spoke to me a lot, of course. And, I mean, this is the thing I've talked about a lot, but...
Yeah, no, I love the Lego Movie. That is,
we're already at 2 hours. I'm clipping stuff now.
Okay. You know, I agree. I think it's great. The animation in particular, kind of blew me away. Like the level of detail.
What was brilliant about the Lego Movie for me, I'll just say this real quick, is the way it handles POV, because it starts off feeling like a really comedic. Like a satire. There's all this social commentary about big business and stuff, and then you realize that it's all from a child's imagination. So all of the like really standard like anti-consumerism, which is really funny coming from Lego, kinds of messages that it feels like we're getting in that movie is a microcosm thing from the head of a kid who simply feels oppressed by his father. It's freaking genius.
It's great. And Will Ferrell's pretty good in it.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. That's true. That's another. I got 2 Will Ferrell movies, at least one of the runners up, and a thing actually on my list. What is your pick? Because that's such a broad thing. It's like, how do you pick one animated movie?
Yeah, and I mean, I grew up during the golden age of Pixar. So anytime a new Pixar movie came out, I'd go to the theater, and it would like.
I intentionally avoided Pixar for this.
Did you?
Yeah,
because
it's so obvious and obligatory in my brain. I'm not saying you're being obligatory.
No,
I'm just saying
I know.
there were other choices for me that I could go to that I like just as much as Pixar movie.
I get that.
So I didn't do that.
And I did pick another animated movie for another category.
Oh, okay, cool.
The Princess Mononoke is an animated movie.
Right, that's true. I thought you meant for later, but yes, you have done that. Yeah.
I'm gonna say Up.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about it as like a romance, which is a perspective I didn't really think about. But it's a movie that I saw at just the right time. I had just really encountered death for the first time, and my parents had gotten a divorce around that time. So I was able to identify with Carl Fredricksen and Russell, and so it almost felt like two parts of myself going on an adventure together and reconciling each other. And obviously, everyone talks about. I know people who don't care for the movie say the first 10 minutes are great. Then it just becomes a generic kind of adventure movie. I understand where people are coming from. Look, the first 10 minutes make me cry, and so does the middle hour, and then so does the last little bit. I'm a wreck when I watch that movie, and the way it all kind of comes together is I think very magnificent, and I think it's Pete Docter's best work still. And I think it has so many weird elements. Like a talking dogs and a weird bird and explorers and like it's so eclectic, but it all is fashioned in such a way that is consistent and it's easy to process. So I'm gonna say Up. Any runners up for animation?
I mean, we say so many different things. I avoided Lion King because that was in my top 20.
Okay.
But that would have been the answer on this list probably. Although now that I'm thinking about it, I kind of wish I had put Lego Movie in that 20 if I didn't.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have it in front of me. I don't think I did. But anyway, but beyond that, if I go to one Pixar movie, it's maybe Monsters University, and then Mask of the Phantasm because
it's great.
I can't help myself. I also, however, almost wanted to not do that and put Mask of the Phantasm also as a runner-up in romance. It's a tragic romance.
I would say my runners-up are Toy Story 2, which is a very close call with Up. I think that's the best Toy Story movie. And I would say Tangled.
Which I've never seen. Everybody speaks to that or says it's great. But
now, I don't know if this speaks to its quality or to the lack of quality elsewhere. It's the best Disney movie of the 2010s, and it came out in 2010. So, yeah.
That period for them in animation was like the 80s all over again.
You think so?
Yeah.
Because I'm in the camp that I don't like Wreck-It Ralph. I don't really like Big Hero 6.
Oh, you don't?
I don't really like Big Hero 6. I think that I do like Moana. I like Zootopia.
No, I didn't see either of
those. But I don't. But I think Tangled handles like growing up in a pretty updated way that I think that something like Beauty and the Beast was able to kind of capture as well. Yeah. I also love Beauty and the Beast.
That's a brilliant movie. Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Okay, now it's time for disaster films. And again, I could have put 28 Days Later in disaster. I almost wanted to put it there. But what is your disaster pick?
So disaster is my least favorite genre.
You know, Jason loves disaster
does he?
movies. Yeah.
I don't have any runners up because there's only one disaster movie I actually like. And I really like this. And I know a lot of people don't like it because it was the most popular movie for a while. It's Titanic.
Oh, okay. I thought you might go there.
I like Titanic a lot, and I actually like it the most as a disaster movie.
I have never sat through the entire thing.
Like
it's so long, and it's one of those movies that you just feel like by osmosis you've seen.
And I can understand. There is so James Cameron has this thing where he doesn't really know how to end a movie. It just keeps going on and on and on. Yeah. Even as good, like Terminator 2 is really great.
Kind of like when we make a video.
Yes. But I do really like Titanic. I think that as a disaster movie, it's jaw-dropping spectacle, but it never loses sight of the tragedy of what you're watching. And I know that James Cameron this is always kind of the weird thing you run into. Like, you're kind of profiting and making the most financially successful movie of all time on the deaths of a bunch of people. But it does kind of watch as a moving tribute to those whose lives were lost in the Titanic.
Does it?
I that's what I take from it. But I also know that there is a sort of level of exploitation that was taking place, where they do change what real people did on that event. And they had to apologize for it and stuff like that.
Well, and you can't tell me that there wasn't a lot of influence from the Poseidon adventure.
Absolutely. Which is
a spectacle film that's not based on anything that really happened. And I don't think.
I don't believe so. Maybe it is loosely inspired by the Titanic, but
maybe so.
But I've not seen. But like you with Titanic, I feel like socially osmosis. I've seen Poseidon Adventure, but I haven't seen it.
I was a kid. Yeah.
But I do want to go back and watch that. But I do really actually like Titanic a lot. So that's my pick for disaster. What's yours?
Cloverfield.
That's a really good. How did I not think of that? That's my runner-up, Cloverfield. So.
It's great. It's a really good found footage movie. And I know that's a polarizing thing that a lot of people don't care for, but that's the last thing that Abrams was involved in that I really, really liked. And I know that I have a love-hate relationship with Star Trek 09, but I know he's made a couple things since then, like Super 8 and stuff that I just never saw. But
Super 8's not that.
If memory serves, he didn't actually direct Cloverfield, right?
Matt Reeves directed Cloverfield.
Is that right?
It is.
I didn't know. I knew it wasn't Abrams, but I didn't know it was him. That's interesting.
Directed by Matt Reeves, written by Drew Goddard, who wrote The Martian.
Oh, Drew Goddard?
Drew Goddard, yes.
For a second, I was like, were we talking about the same person? Yeah. Well, Drew Goddard, who has done all kinds of things.
Yeah, he's done all kinds of things. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting.
That is quite the team, and
it is.
I really like Cloverfield. I think it does a good job of being an American Godzilla.
Yep.
Taking a recent tragedy and about kind of how people try to move on from, say, something like 9/11, but then what if it happens again right when we thought we moved on from it? And
I really bought the scope, and I liked how long it takes before you get really a sense of the monster. You're able to use your imagination, and it's one of those things where whatever you come up with in your head is going to be scarier than the thing you see, and you get glimpses of it. You can kind of put it together and tell what it is, but you don't get a lot of full-on shots of it, which I appreciate. It didn't have irritating characters that I wanted to see die, which I appreciate. I mean, I don't think of the characters in that movie when I think of that movie, but it's not the but it's what is that movie? It's not the War of the Worlds thing where I'm supposed to feel bad that this kid is missing, and I'm glad that the kid's missing because I hated that kid. So yeah.
One thing that's interesting about Cloverfield is some of its cast did go on to be somewhat successful. Like T.J. Miller from the Deadpool movies is in that movie.
I don't even remember that. That's him, yeah.
And Lizzie Kaplan, who is in shows I think you've seen. She would be a Whedon actress if she was 10 years, if she got transported 10 years earlier.
Interesting.
She wasn't in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but she was in that Marvel short that was setting up Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'll look her up. You've for sure seen her in something, but
I'm sure if I go back to you ever have that where you haven't seen a movie but you liked it for 10 or 15 years, so you finally go back and look at it and you're like, wait a minute, there's all these people that I know now that went on and did things, and of course that happens, but it's always a weird phenomenon.
Of course, all the main characters of Cloverfield went on to do nothing, but besides them, do you have runners up for? Because I don't, except for Cloverfield.
I really don't, because they went up in other categories, I want to say just because of nostalgia and the way it affected me when I was a kid, I want to say, why is my mind blank? Independence Day, but that's not a good movie.
It's entertaining,
but
I don't like Roland Emmerich. That's the one I give him a bone for.
But the scope of that is beautiful.
Have you seen The Day After Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Remember the part where they're running away from the freezing hallway?
My wife freaking loves The Day After Tomorrow. It is such a dumb movie, but it's fun. The cold is coming because the hallway is freezing. So I guess we're in our last category. We spent way too long in that library. Let's see. Well, we already did romance and drama. I have these listed in a couple of these in different places than the order we've gone in. So we have two left.
Oh yes, war.
We have We have three with war because we have biopic and documentary.
That's true. Okay.
Yeah.
Which one do you want to do first?
Unless we're obligatorily doing superhero.
Oh, if you want to do superhero, then yeah. Okay.
It's easy to throw that out. Everybody knows what mine is. I could do runners up. Just go look at the 4s on superhero rewind.
There you go.
Pretty good. And Logan.
There's a whole list of it.
My favorite my favorite Western is Logan. I'm sorry. That's true. So we're into biopics. And is it my turn to go?
Yeah, your turn to go first.
So everybody knows that my favorite biopic and one of my favorite movies of all time, I think I put it number one when I did that 20, is The Founder, about Ray Kroc, who sort of founded McDonald's, and that's a great Michael Keaton performance. I had to pick something else, so I was between a couple, and I ultimately. Which of these am I going to go with? I have two. I've become kind of a biopic nut, and there's like a lot of things that I can. And I didn't write a ton because there's too many. I think I'm going with Rocket Man.
Yeah.
I think I'm going with Rocket Man.
Yeah. So that's an interesting movie.
Mm-hmm. And I also could have said that for musical.
That's true. The way they adapt.
I love the POV in that movie. It's wonderful.
Yeah, the way they adapt his life, like almost like a musical he would make is pretty cool.
You feel like you're always in his head, and it's one of those movies that's like really tragic, but also it's also wonderfully entertaining. I think the stuff at the end in the like rehab clinic is laid on too thick. The bit with like him and his younger self and all that, I didn't love that. That went on a little too long for me. But the rest of it is lovely.
Yeah. My favorite biopic is from the same year, 2019, The Irishman, which could have just
still haven't seen. I didn't know that was a biopic. I know nothing about that movie. People just keep somebody has requested that. That's on my list. I'm gonna have to do that finally. Yeah.
Well, it's 3.5 hours long. So
you could put it in epic.
I could. That's what I was saying earlier. Like I guess my biopic's an epic. It's 3.5 hours long. It spans 6 decades, and it's about Frank Sheeran, who is the guy who claims to have killed Jimmy Hoffa.
Oh.
And so it's a really cool concept for a crime movie or a gangster movie. The concept is, what if somebody didn't backstab anybody? He was completely loyal to everybody, and his life turns out to be worse than anybody else's. And so it is really interesting because it's Robert De Niro, and he gets involved with a crime family that's run by Joe Pesci, and then Jimmy Hoffa is played by Al Pacino. And so that crime family and Jimmy Hoffa become sort of, in business together, and Robert De Niro is sort of like the liaison between the two of them. And the way it just captures its period, it has a very unique pacing where because he's telling his story. We meet him at the beginning in an old folks home, and he's just telling a story. So it does sort of have this kind of rambling quality. And while you watch it the first hour or so, you kind of wonder, this is it? Like you made a 3.5 hour movie, but as the movie keeps going on, it does sort of feel like that. I think it made the right choice in being as long as it is, and it made the right choices as far as how it's structured. And there's just a lot of great scenes. I like quoting that movie a lot, but it's really good, and it's kind of unique as far as like a biopic goes, because you have something like Gandhi, which is just trying to do everything. And then, you got a good Ben Kingsley movie, a good Ben Kingsley performance out of it, but I don't really ever want to go back and watch that movie.
Sure.
But with The Irishman, I watched it twice in the theater without ever having to like pause it or anything. You know what I mean? Because it was a Netflix movie, and so I could have just paused it at home, but I sat down the whole 3.5 hours both times. So
wow,
I really like that movie. I guess if I had a runner up, it would be The Founder, because that movie's really good.
It's really good. Steve Jobs. I finally saw that a couple weeks ago.
It's so good.
And fell in love with that. And I like Social Network more than you do, but I think Steve Jobs is better than that movie.
Yeah, I was thoroughly impressed by Steve Jobs.
I could say more things, but let's keep going. So we're going to do a documentary real quick. I added this category because I watch a lot of documentaries, and didn't used to, but that's been a thing with me for the last several years. Although it was weird. I wrote a couple things down because I was trying to decide between them, and then I found myself just like writing. This is the category I wrote the most runners up for. I just kept writing things. Yeah, stuff kept coming to me. So I guess I do watch a lot of documentaries. But anyway, what is yours? Are you supposed to start? I think you are supposed to start.
Am I? Okay.
Yeah, because I did Rocket Man last time.
Okay, yeah. I have not seen hardly any documentaries.
Interesting.
I looked it up.
I would think you would do more of that.
I thought I did. I thought I did, but I've seen 3.
Ever?
Ever. According to Letterboxd, which I'm
ever. That's hard to believe.
And two of them are actual documentaries. One of them is not a documentary, but it's in the style of a documentary.
Sure. But yeah, that wouldn't count.
But yeah, that's called Hexen. It's a silent horror movie that's pretending to be about witchcraft. Anyways, but I have seen one that I do really like. It's Peter Jackson.
Like if you pick Full Metal Jacket or something, you're like, it's not an actual documentary.
Yeah. So my I guess my pick is going to be They Shall Not Grow Old. I don't know if you've
heard of that. Okay. What is that?
So Peter Jackson made it.
Yeah.
It's the first thing he made after he took a long break after the Hobbit trilogy. And he's actually making another documentary about the Beatles right now.
That's cool.
It looks really cool. But this is...
But he's not going to watch it because he doesn't see documentaries.
But I do watch Peter Jackson documentaries, evidently. I will say They Shall Not Grow Old is a fascinating concept of a documentary. They had found a bunch of World War I footage. And they had restored it and colorized it.
Oh, I remember that, and I was going to go see that, and I forgot all about it. I really want to see that.
I almost saw it in the theaters.
Who's streaming it?
I don't know if anyone's... I think you have to rent it.
I gotta try to get my hands on that.
A girl I was dating at the time, like, she really wanted to watch it.
Thank you for reminding me about that, because I really wanted to see it, and I forgot all about it.
It's not too long. It's only like an hour and a half. But it is harrowing, and the way it's structured is unique, because it's black and white until they go to war. And then it goes full screen, colorized, and then...
I just thought it was nuts that they found that much footage from that period.
The climax of this... Because it's structured in an interesting way where they tackle it almost like a day in the life, where this is what brushing our teeth was like. This is what
cool.
Eating was like. You know, they gave you, like, one, like, razor, and so it's like, but... you get dull really fast, and, like, what using the bathroom was like, what all of these things were like, and, like of course trench foot's an aspect of it, and so it's all about the life, and then of course the ending, the last chunk of it's all about battle and trench warfare,
which immediately would humanize those characters, because it's easy to put yourself in their shoes. So it's like, if I was there, what would my day-to-day life be like? So that once you get into the war part, then it's probably scarier.
It is so gut-wrenching and harrowing and heartbreaking. I don't want to spoil, but the climax does something I didn't even think was possible. But it is.
Do they manufacture anything for that movie?
No. I think some of they're reading letters, and they have found, like, people to read the letters.
Sure.
But some of it is actual archival interview stuff.
Really?
Yes.
That's nuts. But they don't make up any footage.
They do not make up any footage. It is all authentic.
Wow.
And I've always thought World War I tanks were awesome because they look cool. I can't think that anymore, because you just see them rolling over bodies, and it's heartbreaking, and it's fantastic. And if you have not seen it, I would highly recommend it. But what about you? What's your favorite documentary?
That's cool, man. See, it sucks because you've seen what is probably a cooler documentary than anything on my list, and you don't watch documentaries, but I have not seen that because I forgot all about it. And for some reason, I wasn't thinking of that as a documentary, but obviously it is.
And that's like, it's structured unlike a documentary. It's a kind of, they're trying to retool something with the form, and that's what's
and it was advertised like a movie.
I didn't see the advertisements for it.
Yeah,
Okay.
There were trailers for that in front of movies and at the theater, and it's not like that never happens with a documentary, but like
that Mr. Rogers one got I saw a lot of ads for that one.
Yeah, it did. Which was one of the movies that was fighting for my top spot. I did not end up picking that, but it's my first runner-up. I went with, and I have gone back and rewatched this documentary probably 4 or 5 times. I went with Life Itself, which is the Roger Ebert documentary, and it's beautiful. I don't know what to say about it. It's really informative about his life story, and I have read the autobiography that it's based on, and it's really true to the tone of that. But it really gets to the heart of him as a writer first, and a celebrity, and a guy talking in front of a camera second. Cool. And a lot of the best material from the book is voiced over in the movie. And I've never looked into this. I'm not sure exactly how that was done, because Roger Ebert, when the movie was being made, was of course ill. And he died while they were making it. and his jaw was already gone, and he hadn't been able to speak for several years prior. So you have all this voiceover from the book, which he wrote while he couldn't speak, but it sounds like him talking.
Wow.
And I've never looked into it. I don't know who it is talking, and I know that there was a like voice synthesizer thing that that he had somebody working on who that like made it so that he could speak voice synthesized when he was like writing things and playing it back in his voice, but it wasn't that good. It didn't sound like this. This is just a guy talking, and so I'm not totally sure. Somebody can probably tell me. I don't know what that was. I'm sure it's just somebody talking who sounds like him to some degree, but like it just sounds like him. I don't know. I always thought that was weird, but sorry.
I didn't know that was made while he was ill.
Yeah.
The reason I actually haven't watched it is because that came out the year after he passed. I thought it was just a cash-in on his death.
Oh no, not at all.
So
he was
now
he was deeply involved in the making of it
because
it's based on his book. And so there's so the documentarian who the guy who made the movie was interviewing him for the film while he was in the hospital, and I mean and before, but like he's still answering interview questions via text on his deathbed.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean you got to see it. It's wonderful.
You sent me the book that was based on for Christmas one year.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And I started reading it, but then because I'm me and I can't finish a book and I can't finish a TV show unless it's called Sex and the City apparently. I fell off of it somewhere, and I should get back to reading that.
That's one of my favorite films. We're gonna have to wrap up because I gotta go upstairs here. But I also on my runners up. Did you have runners up? Because you said you only had a couple movies that you had seen.
Bowling for Columbine when I was in high school.
Oh, okay.
I remember that making an impact on me, but it's been so long. I don't know.
So of course the Fred Rogers documentary, Won't You Be My Neighbor, one of the best documentaries I've seen. And it really informed about him, and I've done a lot of research on Fred Rogers, and I knew a lot of what was in that, but there's a lot of stuff that I didn't, and seeing his wife interviewed was great, and some other folks. Batman and Bill, the Bill Finger documentary, everyone should watch that. Searching for Steve Ditko, but much the same, and then a couple Star Trek documentaries. Star Trek is my gateway drug into a documentary, because there's a lot of really good Star Trek documentaries, and then I found myself searching out a lot of other things. I think probably one of the first documentaries I ever saw was Trekkies. Trek Nation I put on this list, and which is the documentary made by Roddenberry's son, who is Rod Roddenberry, who has something of a character arc throughout his own film of not initially appreciating Star Trek and getting why anybody cares, and coming to get to understand Star Trek through the fans, and it's really good. He made that movie over 10 years. And
wow.
then the Deep Space Nine documentary, What We Left Behind, which just came out a couple years ago.
I've seen that. It always looks like Heisenberg looking at Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, with Ira C. from Bear. Yeah. I've got that poster right over there.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. I can't see it because the lights are off. But I need to watch the Fred Rogers documentary for sure. I don't know why I didn't get around to watching that when it came out.
I saw it in the theater twice.
No, I hear people talk about it, and it almost makes me tear up because it just sounds so good. All right.
You're not here much longer, but if we have time, we'll throw it in.
Okay.
So if we were doing war, Hacksaw Ridge was the only thing that I had down. What was your
I know,
war movie?
You know, this movie's great, but it makes you lose faith in humanity. It's Apocalypse Now.
Oh, I don't want to think about that movie.
It's psychedelic, and it's horrifying, and it's so 70s. I want to watch the documentary about the making of that movie because I don't know if you know anything about the history of that. Like people having like heart attacks on the set and stuff, and Marlon Brando was saying, "Okay, when are we cutting this fight scene? Because I'm not losing the weight to do that." And
wow.
And so they had to just come up with a lot of. They shot 1 million foot of film on that, and that's why there's like 3 cuts of that movie, but only one of which anybody actually cares about. But,
wow.
I think it's great, and I think it's like a definitive take on a war that could only have really been made at that time, because it is. Coppola was kind of a part of that counterculture movement with his movie making, and it's sort of like has something to say about like warfare and how warfare is almost like a part of the human experience, and it's like the worst part of it, but it's like a constant throughout. So I really love it, even though it's not an easy watch for me.
It's not. I lost sleep for 3 days after seeing that in high school. And I mean, you know, impressionable period. I'm more desensitized now. I've seen a lot. You know, I've seen a lot of stuff since then, so I'm sure I can handle it now, but I don't want to. Did you have any runners up in that category that you want to throw out?
Paths of Glory, which is the 4th Kubrick movie. It's the one he made with Kirk Douglas right before they did Spartacus, and because he worked with Kirk Douglas, that's why they do Spartacus. I think it is one of the most clever anti-war movies, because it's a movie about the French military, but they cast exclusively American actors. And that is absolutely a deliberate choice because of the way funding from like the U.S. military works. It's really like it will make you lose your faith in everything about the system.
Oh, good.
But
yeah, if you have any of that left.
And Kirk Douglas is fabulous. I mean, he's one of those, you know, iconic actors. But if you haven't seen Paths of Glory, I think it's on HBO Max. It's in the Criterion Collection, so I know HBO Max has a lot of those titles on it. So check it out.
So real quick, I've got to get going upstairs. Yeah. Obligatorily, superhero real quick. Everybody knows my favorite superhero movie of all time is Batman Begins. It has never changed. What is yours?
I've recently rewatched the Dark Knight trilogy. Right now, I'm going to tentatively say The Dark Knight.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
There we go.
And then it would have been neck and neck for me with Begins and Winter Soldier.
And my favorite Marvel movie is Civil War. So that would probably be my
Civil War is also great.
Wow. You did Batman Begins. I did its sequel. Your runner-up was
Winter Soldier. You did its sequel.
I did its sequel. Hey, we did it.
And I could have easily said either of those two because they're, you know, obviously also wonderful.
They're also great.
Thanks a lot, everybody, for watching. We're going to go ahead and end off this 2.5-hour video now.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's all right. But we covered a crazy... I don't think I've ever talked about that many movies in one sitting before.
Yeah.
Ever.
Well, I'm glad to have been there for that.
That was a lot of fun, Connor. I appreciate you coming up with that topic, man. Once again, I hope you guys had a good time. Thanks a lot for watching and listening. Leave your comments about any of our choices, and feel free to throw in some of your own. And we will see you again with lots more content here on Geekvolution. Connor, thanks again for making the trip, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And really glad that we got to sit down and do this. I was Captain Logan. This was Connor Nielsen.
Bye-bye.
See you later, folks. Bye.